Finance Committee tonight is going to review our public safety budgets. The police chief got here first and commandeered the hot seat, so he's going to start, and then we've got the fire chief and dispatch here to talk to us as well. Typically, they spend a little bit of time filling us in on what their departments have accomplished in the past year and the challenges they've had and where they're going in the future. We're going to pass over some of that tonight. As much as we'd like to hear about what they're doing, we have a limited amount of time, so we're going to skip right into what they're planning for next year and what their budget is providing and what may not be in the budget that they need to have. So with that said, the Finance Committee all has the budget. We've all read the narratives. Are there questions? The police chief has written detailed explanations for each account and the changes therein. Are there questions for the chief or for Peter about the things he's explained to us here? No? Okay. Al?
Yeah. Thank you. Chief, I just have a couple. The biggest one, I think, is the court overtime line. You've got it in for $35,000, and to date, you've only spent $2,800 for the first half of the fiscal year, and if we go back in history for 2 years, you've never spent over $3,000 for it. The justification for 27 is it's the same as 26, but that was way over budgeted itself, apparently.
So our officers all, the court time, some of it's contractual. Officers are allotted 3 hours of court time a month. But 6 hours a month. In addition to that, if we were to get any kind of a sizable case, a serious case, which we've had in the past, involving something like a homicide, which involves multiple court visits, multiple officers.
Jay is asking that you speak more into the microphone.
Just bring it closer to you, please. There you go.
Is that good?
Yes.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
If we were to get some sort of big case, which would involve multiple officers testifying in court, numerous trips to court, it's going to eat that up fairly quickly. So I've kept it at the same level for the past few years. But it's more for what could happen, not what is happening currently.
Yeah, but with respect, Chief, I mean, with the situation we're in this year and the track record, like, you've never spent over $3,000. I mean, yeah, a case may come along, but it may not. And if it did, I'm sure we'd have other ways of handling it, from transferring money, reserve funds, and so forth. I'd like to see if we can cut this down by some fair amount to come closer to your actual expenditures, which the standard we pretty much hold every line item in most budgets to.
Okay.
The other one is, it's a smaller matter, but the motorcycle lease, is that necessary?
The motorcycle?
Yeah?
Yes.
What do you do with it?
It runs, we use it for traffic enforcement during the warmer months. People like to see the bike out. It can go in places where the cruisers can't. We have it running from April to November. I think it's been an asset to the department, and the lease went up $1,000.
Yeah.
So
We used to have Sergeant Gaskin on a bike. That seemed to be...
Pardon me?
That seemed to work. I said we used to have Sergeant Gaskin on a bike. That seemed to work.
That was a long time ago.
Same miracle. Yeah. Again, a small matter, but if things that aren't necessary, I think we've got to take hard looks at this year. If that's really necessary, then we'll have to take your word for it, I guess.
Is it an option? I guess we could also ask. Is it an option to cancel that contract?
We have a three-year lease with Seacoast Harley-Davidson up in New Hampshire.
And are we in the middle?
We're just starting the next 3-year lease.
So we just signed a new 3-year lease? Okay.
And that stayed the same as last year?
It moved up $1,000.
$1,000.
How did it move up in mid-lease?
No, it's a new lease.
It's a new lease.
Excuse me?
It's a new lease.
They just started.
They just started it.
Okay, all right. That's all I have, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Al. Donna, you had some?
You can.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
I didn't have eyes in the back of my head tonight.
You already answered the court overtime question, but I had a general overtime question too. With the hiring freeze that we have, I know in your explanation, you said that you use the overtime to fill shifts if people are out sick or, whatever. But with the open positions, did you increase that with the idea that you were going to have a lower level of staffing?
So if the hiring freeze remains in effect, we'll have 23 full-time police officers, which is woefully inadequate to police a town this size of 20,000 plus people. That being said, all of these guys contractually and girls contractually have quite a bit of time off between vacation time, personal time, comp time, and if they put in for it within or beyond a 3-day period, they're guaranteed the time off. So we used to have, back in the day, we used to have part-time police officers that would kind of fill in some of these shifts. We're down to one. And I don't know how much longer he's going to be doing it for. And once he is done, that'll be the end of any part-time police officers in Holden. So, yeah, the thinking is that we consistently overspend that line because we've had to fill shifts because we're short. If the override fails, we're still going to be 3 officers short. So.
Okay. And then my other question was related to the maintenance and the cruisers. If the override fails, do you, and in this year's budget, we do not have any replacement plan for we usually do 2 cruisers a year, and that was taken out of the plan. Would you expect that the maintenance on the existing cruisers may go up?
Yes.
Okay,
As they age out, yes.
that's it. Thanks.
So that's not, I had the same question, so that's not in this budget, even though other things, the cars were removed from the budget, we didn't add back the maintenance might have because we're running an older fleet.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that may be an adjustment we need to make if we do not have the ability to add the new cars. You all set, Donna?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
Thank you. Hi, Chief. First, I just want to say excellent write-up, as always. So
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I love some of the programs that are in here, and I'm sorry you're not allowed to talk more about them for this
That's
year.
okay.
But they're very good.
Thank you.
Overall, actually, one of these is for Peter. With, I think overall in multiple departments, including this one, we have gas being cut a bit. And now with the Iran war, I mean, nobody knew that was coming. How does that factor in? Is that something that we should revisit? Is it something that, how do you guys come up with that in the first place? You're trying to, figure out a year ahead what the gas prices are going to be. How does that work?
Public Works has a process that they go through and a formula that they use, and I'm not sure what exact, references they go to, but it's been fairly accurate over the years.
Yeah.
And I
We
think
haven't had a Middle East war for a while, though.
no,
Gases.
no, we haven't had a huge hiccup, but it still remains to be seen. I guess I don't know.
All right, so you're comfortable leaving it where it is?
For now, unless some we start to get in a prolonged. It looks like a prolonged thing.
Yeah.
30 days from now that could impact us for the long term next year.
Okay. And Chief, I know you are looking for a hiring plan, that you're hiring an officer a year, and I know you want to keep crime rates down, and our crime rates are good. My question is, or this is more for the future, I guess. I'm not demanding it this year or anything, but it would be nice to know what our crime rate is and like how you figure that out, and maybe what it's been for the last 5 years and what the trajectory is. And then also, I know like for fire, they have like how many ambulances they have to go out, how many incidents they have. If you have those statistics, I think that'd be interesting for us to see the trajectory on that as well. Like if we can see it's gone up 10% a year, or, the calls are going up at this rate and blah, blah, blah. That would help to, for us when we're looking at the staffing and, figuring out with the deficit, how are we going to do that? But anyway, thank you for that. Also, on the new Quinn bill, and I know there's, associated with different people's degrees, they get bonuses and things of that nature. Do we have anyone on the department that doesn't have a degree, or is it, we do, okay.
We do, yeah.
Okay, so do you know approximately, and if you don't, just off the top of your head, I mean, does almost everyone have a degree, or is it like 50-50, or? Do you know the percentages?
I would say most have some level of education.
Like an associate's or something, yeah?
I think
Okay,
there's only a couple
okay.
that do not.
Maybe a
Is your
breakout
Chief,
of,
is your microphone on?
oh, sorry.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think only a couple do not have degrees. Most of the department does. I think we have 5 or 6, or maybe 5 that have master's degrees. And then the majority has bachelor's, and I don't think we have anybody that has an associate's that I know of. So,
Okay.
but
That'd be great. Maybe if we can get a breakdown of that,
Sure.
just to see kind of how many people are eligible for all those bonuses, because obviously it's impacting the budget, 81%. So, I mean, I know it's taking over from the last program, but that's, it's a big line item.
So I wanted to ask about that also, if I could
Yeah.
interrupt your flow here.
Yeah.
So for the past 10 years or so, we've had the police education line.
Yes.
And in this latest contract negotiation, we changed back to, you're calling it the Quinn bill. It isn't actually legislation anymore, but that's just to ground us in what it is. And the cost has gone up substantially. So I know this is all part of a negotiation and give and take and everything. But still, we increased some $300,000 in education costs. Why did we go back down this road? We worked for years to get away from the Quinn. We were watching for people to retire out and so forth, and now went
so
back to
what
it.
we found was that we were losing people to smaller communities and same-size communities that offered that benefit. And it seems to be a standard benefit that's being offered in most communities. And so we were putting people through the academy, paying all that money to get them trained up, and then they would leave a year later to go to a place that offered this benefit. And so I went to the manager, and we had a long discussion on what we needed to do to fix the problem. And one of the things that we came up with is we had to offer this benefit. And this has enabled us to not only keep the people that we have now, but also to, I hate to use the word poach, but take people from other departments.
We'll call it recruiting.
Yeah, it's creative recruiting, we'll call it that. But we've been able to get people who are already trained, which saves the town a tremendous amount of money and time. It takes about a year to get somebody through the police academy and through field training. So to get boots on the ground is a complex process that takes an awful long time and a lot of money. So that's why we decided to go down this road.
Al also had a question on this topic. Oh, and Jane next, okay.
Just to follow up on that, excuse me, looking at the fiscal '26 budget, for which we had 72.5 in police education and 213 in Quinville, round numbers, we had $285,000. Now that they're combined, we're $100,000 above that, or more than a third above where we were last year. What's the explanation for that?
So
Well, education goes away this year, so it kind of gets folded into
I
it.
get that. We combine them both
Right.
from last year, and we have 286,000 fiscal '26, and we have 386,000 for fiscal '27, a $100,000 increase,
Right.
which is for what?
Because the margins under Quinn are greater than what we're paying on our former education stipends.
And this was negotiated, I assume.
It was, and we have no ability to, the chief was saying it helps us not lose people and recruit people and all that, and that's true, but we're in collective bargaining negotiations. If there's a similar a municipality nearby that reflects Holden and they're doing something, they're giving a benefit, we are going to have to give that benefit. We're going to lose it if we get appealed. We're going to have, we know we have to give it up, and for whatever reason, dominoes have fallen to towns even like West Boylston is now offering Quinn. When West Boylston, Rutland, and all the towns surrounding us are offering it, we're never going to win that battle in a collective bargaining room.
I get this, but we've heard it for years that we're going to lose people if we don't have uncontrollable increases in expenses every year. At some point, there's got to be a break-even point where we say, okay, goodbye, go take your benefit somewhere else.
yeah, it's
Yeah, that's a little hard to do when we don't have employees anymore, but
Well,
It takes too long to train police officers.
Excuse me?
It takes too long to train police officers.
Yeah, I get that, Chief, but
It's 6 months in a police academy and another 3 months of field training just to even get them started.
then I suggest there's got to be some give and take somewhere else that's softer in your budget, because we're scraping for money this year.
I understand that, but these are all contractual items
I
that we're
get
talking
that.
about.
I get that. So if they're contractual and they can't be changed, then we'll look at the things that can be changed.
Okay.
So the labor line itself, the bulk of the force is up almost 25%. And then this line is up 80%. Although that's not really fair because we're reducing the other line, so. About 30%. So this contract, I understand your goals in doing it. We just have to realize how expensive it was, for us at a bad time. But I've been in corporations that have been in these battles with other companies, and you have to have competitive wages, or you lose. You don't just lose employees; you lose your good employees, and people who can't get other jobs.
Can I just say something, Paul, too?
Sure.
I don't want to lose any employees.
Right.
I think we have great police officers who are well-trained, professional, community servants, and I don't want to lose them.
Right.
I don't want people just to take their benefits and go somewhere else. I think that was a very ignorant statement, and I don't appreciate it.
So,
I think we better stop right there, Chief, don't you?
Pardon?
I think we better stop right there with the, I'm looking out for the taxpayers.
I understand what you're looking out for, but your
I
statement,
need to ask the question.
your statement was inappropriate.
I disagree.
Okay, then we can disagree.
So turnover is very expensive. I agree with the chief. I've experienced that myself many times. So I understand the goal of not turning it over. Just you start looking at the numbers, and it's a very expensive goal to achieve, to eliminate it. But if that is the market, and I presume it is because you guys negotiated this extensively, that's where we're at. It just comes at a very unfortunate time. Jane, you couldn't question?
Yeah.
Because Stephanie still has the floor for other things. We're beating this one to death first.
Well, that's because you two had so much to say.
Yep.
My question is this number, as a practical matter, a number that must be budgeted for, but surely will not be used fully in any one year? You're protecting yourself budget-wise for requests for additional education, right? No?
No, it goes by, so it goes by who we have currently and what their level of education is. So it's depends on.
Oh, so it's automatically paid out essentially as a recognition of their current level of education? And they can get more education and then receive a higher rate?
Correct,
Okay, so the number will in fact increase over time?
correct.
Okay, I did not.
It's a percentage on top of their base salary.
Right. Okay, I didn't, thank you.
Other questions? All right, back to Stephanie.
I just have one more, and it's on the police officer or the resource officer that we have at the school. And I saw that the actual for 25 was 60,000, and then the next 2 years we budgeted 50. Can you just talk quickly about how does that work? Do we split a salary, or do they just pay by hours, or how does that work?
So we have an agreement with Wachusett.
Yeah.
And we have one school resource officer that's full-time inside the high school. The other schools, we recently just hired somebody that we're going to have going to the other schools on a part-time basis. The agreement that we've had with Wachusett, and correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, I think they pay half the salary of the SRO.
Yep. That's what I recall.
So the fact that this went down $10,000, was that just based on who's actually in there and splitting their salary?
I think
or-
so, yeah.
Okay.
It's a newer officer.
It's a newer officer.
Okay.
He only has about 3 years on.
Yep, got it. Okay, thank you.
Really? That's interesting, because the actual amounts for 24 and 25 are nice round numbers, 45,000 and 60,000. When I look at that, I think they're making a payment to the town to offset something, not matching a salary or anything like that. So I guess I was under the wrong impression.
They split it.
They split it, but it just seems odd that it came out to $45,000, 000.00, You normally think,
Right.
we'll pay you $45,000, which is approximately half the cost of an officer, or whatever the case may be,
I think it was a dollar amount at that point with the schools.
okay?
We just.
That's why I've always understood it, that, we made a rough estimate of what a typical officer would cost.
It does, it approximates, so.
They write a check for that amount, or whatever the share of it is. Okay, we'll finally let you talk again.
Just a quick one.
Are you, Stephanie's done? Sarah?
What about the benefits for the full-time SRO who's in the school? Has that been part of the conversation / negotiation or not? And can we ask them for more?
I don't, it's a great question.
I recall it being a dollar amount. I recall it when we initially started this discussion with the school district, it was, they were being generous at the time because they wanted an SRO there, so they offered us some, a certain amount that I think prior to that, they hadn't been contributing at all.
And there are many communities that have SROs in the schools full-time, and that is completely on the municipality to pay for. So when I became chief, I was a little surprised that there was even any kind of monetary amount that they were giving, pleasantly surprised. So, but it was always my understanding that it was half the salary.
Well, we always have to keep in mind that it is a regional district. So when you think about a municipal school district, that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
But, we're in a regional district. And of course, there are benefits for us, Holden specifically, but I just think it's worth asking.
All set? You got anything else? Just Stephanie has yielded the floor, so if you have other.
It's sort of related to capital. So I'll hold unless you want me
Okay,
to.
other questions on the operating budget for police? Jane?
I'm just a little bit concerned to see the plan. I understand the plan, but to see the plan for future years. Because I do understand and recognize what you've said, that ideally you'd like to have the 26, you have 26 full-time officers now, you'd like to increase to 30. But based on what we know about the budget, that's highly unrealistic, and I just wanted to make sure that you know that too.
It's a flexible plan. It's nothing set in stone, and I think I even said that in there. It's fluid, and it can move back depending on what's going on. This year, I was actually going to ask for an additional full-time officer, but I realized that we were in a tough budget spot, so I pushed it back. So it is definitely flexible, and it's really what my estimation is to police this town effectively, with it growing the way it is, what I need to police it without going over the top.
And I would like to respond to that by saying that you've proudly stated, and we're all grateful, that we live in one of the safest towns in the Commonwealth. And we have been doing that now for a number of years because your force is well-trained and held in high regard, respected by one and all. But that also calls into question if the force really does need to be increased in size. So I'm putting that out there just so that you know that I'm thinking that way, not that you're going to make a change. But I think it's a fair question.
Are you finding that there's new mandates being placed upon you to do things that in prior years you weren't expected to do? I don't know, domestic violence, drug addiction, foreign languages, just different things. I know the schools are faced with an ever-expanding list of things that they're expected to provide. What used to just be a school is now also housing kids from dawn to dusk, and, their mandate has expanded greatly. Has yours over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about Post a little bit? And
Yeah.
Give him a microphone, please, so we can record it.
Oh,
there you go. That's all.
so one of the things that we've been doing for the past couple of years is it's a whole new system of having to stay on top of our training, disciplinary records, whatnot, through the Post agency, which is statewide. They require SROs to have a significant amount of training. Our regular line officers, we're mandated to have at a minimum 40 hours of training per year, per training a year.
To remain certified.
That's to remain certified. Certifications every 3 years. If we ever receive a complaint, in the past, complaints have always been received internally in the station, whether a citizen will come into the station, make a complaint, or by phone call, email. Now they can also make complaints via post, online. And they in turn send that to us.
Could you just briefly explain what POST is so that people listening would
It's
know?
police officer standards and training. It's, that's what they're in charge of. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
So, and they push different types of trainings, too. We've had a fairly decent increase in mental health calls, mental health awareness. So they try to structure our training year to year based on incidents and whatnot that have happened in previous years. So it's always changing year to year. There's only a few things that we have that are the same thing every year, which is CPR, first aid, firearms training, electronic weapons training, use of force, just stuff like that. Yeah, but as far as the complaints go, that's new because now we have to deal with this agency overseeing all of our complaints. So they'll send it to us. We still have to work on it, but it's on their timeline and it's on their review. So that's what we're
Okay, so you are seeing, even with the same level of officers, your mission is slightly expanded over what it traditionally is for what most people would probably think a police department is responsible.
In particular, at the supervisory level, definitely.
Other questions on the operating budget? Sarah?
We had the senior center leadership here a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, I can't remember. And they were discussing some of the impacts from the proposed budget cuts on their department. And she made a comment about the relationship that the senior center team has with public safety. So I wanted to hear your thoughts, just really briefly, on what the potential, how you all work together to serve residents, but also what the potential impact might be if we do realize that significant cut on the senior center side, just from a public safety perspective.
So obviously, we have an excellent relationship with the senior center. Unfortunately, the elderly population is vulnerable to scams and things like that come up all too often. And we've done some outreach with them. We've come here for meetings and stuff just to, warn people about what's out there and what happens. And we do it on a fairly regular basis. I know one of my officers was attending on Fridays the cafe that they have here, and he's here every week, just engaging with the seniors and stuff. So I think it's important. It's really important to have that tie, and for them to feel comfortable to reach out to us if they were to get a phone call that didn't seem right, or somebody's knocking on their door, and that, there's just unfortunately so many scams out there that they fall victim to. So I think it's vitally important to keep that tie with the senior center.
I'm wondering, I think that if we were to cut our outreach coordinators, rather than calling them, we would see a lot of our seniors call you or the fire department because they think, hey, I know who can help me.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Jane?
So recognizing that the police department is labor-intensive, and that's primarily the vast majority of your budget is related to contractual labor obligations. As I was preparing for this meeting, I thought, well, I'd like to look at those expenses in the budget, not meaning just the police budget, but more from a philosophical point of view. I'd like to look at the expenses that are not contractual. And as I looked more carefully, and as we would see in any department chief, there are lots of line items where there has been no increase for a year or two. And those budgeted line items are always in excess of actual expenditures. And so just for the fun of it, just for the exercise of it, I total the list of expenditures in your department where there was no increase proposed from 26 to 27. And I came up with $40,000. And I thought, gee, it would be really nice, since we're looking for every paper clip in this tight budget year, it would be really nice if the budget could be approached differently. All the departments have already cut back their increases for fiscal '27, and we're still looking for money. Maybe a way to go about it would be to look at those flat expenses and to assign a percentage that might be reduced, 10%, 5%. And I know we can't have a full conversation of that here tonight, and I know that you probably don't want to have that conversation. But from my point of view, recognizing that we need to look at every paper clip, we may have to look at the budget from that point of view.
So then, it looks like we've run the course of, I'm sorry?
We're going to handle animal control separately.
Yes, we are. It's a separate budget. So then I think the next thing is the police capital, which is on page 2, it follows page 242 in our budget book. The request was for 3 items. And just to make sure I'm on the right track here, the request was for $30,000 for 3 Motorola police vehicle radios, $90,000 for a police vehicle, and $105,000 for another police vehicle. All of those have been removed by the budget, from the budget by the manager in his attempt to balance the budget without an override, which is what this budget presents to us. Could you talk to us briefly about what those 3 items would have done for you or will do for you if we're able to get them back into the budget, and how you might miss them if they're not here?
So one of the cruiser radios would go on the motorcycle. The other 2 would go into the 2 cruisers that were requested.
So those are for the new cruisers?
Correct.
So they're a pair, they go together?
Yes.
Okay.
And the radios typically run about $10,000 apiece. The 2 cruisers would replace aging units in our fleet. So, I mean, again, these things are running 24 hours a day, every day of the year. So they sustain a significant amount of wear on them. And we tried to, over the years, ask or request for two new cruisers just to replace the ones that are aging out in the fleet.
How many cruisers are there in service at any given point in time? Assuming they're all on the road and everything.
We usually, I mean, if we on a good day, we're running a sergeant and 3 patrol officers. So the line cars, there's probably 4. And then the detectives have cars. I have a vehicle, and the deputy chief has a vehicle. So 2 cars is a quarter of the fleet, or you're replacing cars every 5 years or something on that kind of schedule?
We're running around,
Microphone, please.
I'm sorry, we probably have I'd say about 10, 12 cars off the top of my head.
Okay, so we're talking about 20% of your fleet here
Yeah.
should be replaced, and you're postponing that effort. Okay. Other questions on the capital plan or the lack thereof? Sarah?
This is not on one of your capital items, but I wanted to get your perspective. It relates to the Trout Brook Pavilion roof project. Are you familiar with it at all?
I am not.
Okay. Well, essentially, it's a recreational site, sort of set back in the woods, so not publicly visible, really. And it's really a public safety hazard at this point because of the state of it. However, it is a quite expensive replacement project, and obviously, we're having to have difficult conversations about what we put off and what we don't. If we aren't able to do that project and it gets cut, will we have options for securing it and maintaining public safety? Could we come up with a plan to protect the public?
The building,
Yeah, the building itself, and the manager may have more detail on that.
It's not the building, it's the pavilion.
The pavilion.
I'm sorry, the pavilion. Yes,
So the open-air pavilion.
the open-air pavilion, yes.
We have key access to that site. I know that in the past, when I was on patrol, I would go down there and check on it. And of course, I worked overnights for a lot of my career, so I would be down there at 2 in the morning, which is not obviously an ideal time to check it. But I know we do have access to that site, and could certainly, if it does get done, we'll make it a priority to go down there and check on it. And
All right, I don't see any other questions on capital, so the next topic then would be animal control, which is also supervised by the police department.
Page 87.
A relatively small budget compared to the other ones, $100,000 in total. This is a full-time animal control officer for the weekdays and a part-time person for the weekends, which is
Correct.
what it has been for quite a long time. The other expenses are all very much in line with prior years. Are there questions on the, Donna?
I had questions. So Chief, just out of curiosity, and it's similar to the question I think Stephanie asked about like number of calls per year and things. I read the logs in the landmark, and so I see the animal calls periodically, certainly nowhere near as often as transporting people to the hospital,
Right.
but I'm curious about the need for full-time coverage here. It's a unique skill set, right? Should I make the assumption that we don't have anybody else in town that could cover an animal call?
So our full-time animal control officer, he does a great job. Not only does he do community outreach, especially during the warmer months, just educating the public on rabies and stuff like that. He does, it actually surprises me how often he gets called, and not everything is in the landmark.
Okay.
But
Good to know.
he is called out on any given day, 5 or 6 times.
Okay.
And it's not, in addition to the stuff that he does on the animal side, he also helps us out with our fleet stuff. So if we need a cruiser taken down to get fixed, he transports them back and forth, which frees up, so we don't have to use a police officer for that.
Yep.
So he does an awful lot, and, I consider him a very big asset to the department.
Okay, that's helpful to see how that position is rounded out. It's not just,
And in the part-time, to be honest with you, the part-time animal control officer on the weekends, he's busy. There's a lot of calls, and they handle things that typical animal control officers won't handle. For instance, a lot of animal control officers will not get near like wild animals, but both of these guys don't have a problem with doing that stuff.
okay,
So,
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then another comment on the revenue side for the animal control, and I actually spoke with Selectman Curran the other night about it. I took a look at the dog license fees for all of the surrounding towns, and Holden is definitely below everyone else. I think I found one town that was similar to us, or maybe $1 less. If we can add another 10 grand by increasing our dog license fees up to what the average is for all of the towns around us, which is, I think instead of $10, it's $15. That adds another 10 grand to offset the cost of the animal control. So I actually asked Selectman Curran the other night, if you would consider, from a fee schedule perspective, next year, I know we just collected all the dog fees for this year, but next year, consider putting our dog license fees on par with the other towns.
I know previously, we've heard from chiefs, prior to you and from you, that the number of dogs in town is ever increasing. It's a record level. So it is kind of strange, to Donna's point, to see the revenue kind of flatline here. We would expect an increase there consistently. And I was not aware that we were below market. I know you guys have led a review of a lot of the fees in the last couple of years to
I
get
think
current on the other fees, so.
A couple of years ago, actually.
Right.
They were really low prior to that.
So I agree with Donna. This is something that maybe we should look at, whether we're competing with the other towns for officers. We should compete with the other towns on fees.
Fees go up, the dogs might leave town.
Jane?
Yes, I'm just looking at the salaries and benefits for the full-time and part-time officers as presented in the notes on page 87. Why is it that the full-time officer makes $100,000 working 5 days a week, and the part-time officer works 2 days a week at $66,000?
I think the full-time officer is the one that's at 66,064.
What is the $100,000 item?
That's the total budget for the department.
Oh,
Total,
Sorry.
very tough. And I got caught by that a couple of times, too. Is like, I always thought it was kind of counterintuitive to me. I always assumed the weekends were the busy times. You'd want a full-time guy on. But we have a date.
7 days a week.
Doesn't matter, okay. Any other questions on animal control? All right, I guess with that, I would thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen, for educating us about your budget. Peter, do you have a preference for the rec or the fire coming next?
No. Whoever can get up here first, I guess. It's like a mad
I
race.
don't want to make any enemies by selecting one.
They can choose.
So the fire budget is on page 91, starts on 91. The budget itself is on 99. The narrative starts on 91. As usual, the fire chief has done an excellent job of putting together a narrative explaining the many various factions of fire and the related activities that they provide for the town. Again, Chief, we always love to hear what you guys have been up to and the things you've accomplished, but I think we need to forego that this year, unfortunately, and just get into questions. So, questions on the fire department budget that were not fully answered by the narrative? Jane?
Hi, Chief. Could you just briefly walk me through, and I mean briefly, what would happen to the department if the FEMA budget was cut in Washington such that the SAFER grants went away?
So I think any loss of those positions, the 3 positions that are cut in this budget would be detrimental to the department in many ways. We've been trying to get up to a minimum staffing level for the last couple of years. Currently, as I explained in the overtime narrative and the increase in that line, on the overnights, we staff 4 people on duty when somebody's out. Somebody's off on vacation, sick, injured on duty, stuff like that. Or if we have an open position, because it's just too costly for us to fill every single shift. Problem with that is that's the same staffing level we've had since 2010. When we were doing about 1,600 to 1,800 calls a year. Now we're doing over 3,000. And it leaves us very vulnerable for a disaster. We've been lucky for many years. Our call staffing is not what it once was. We have about 12 call members left. Out of those 12, we have 4 that are active. And out of those 4, we can guarantee 1 or 2 will come in at a time for a fire, which means that those 4 people on duty are your first-line defense for a home fire, or an ambulance call for that matter. If both ambulances are out of town, and if all 4 of those people are out of town, it's going to be a delay. And we saw that a couple of months ago on Boat Street. We had a structure fire in a house. Luckily, the 2 people on the second ambulance got a patient refusal about 5 minutes before the call came in, and we had them to respond to the fire. But our policies do not allow them to enter the structure unless there's 4 people on scene. It's called the 2 in, 2 out rule by NFPA. We follow NFPA 1720 because we're a combination department, which means we have to have a certain amount of people on scene within a certain amount of time. And we very rarely do we ever meet that number, even with our mutual aid, because it takes them a decent amount of time to get here. And we use automatic aid now where we call them upon the 911 call. We don't wait until somebody gets on scene like we did in the past. So that's some of the stuff that we would be dealing with. The other side of it, if the Prop 2.5 override fails, because of the bleak outlook of the budget for FY28 and further, you're going to see a reduction in force because people are going to go to other more stable communities for the same job and maybe for more money. So you're going to see that issue happen, and we saw that issue happen with Paxton over the last 3 years, having to go for an override every year and failing and having to come up with some money to maintain their department. They've lost, and like Chief Sherblum said, I've recruited some people from Paxton that have filled our spots. But at this point, they're lucky they can find somebody with a heartbeat that will take a job there. And I don't want to see our department in that position.
Stephanie?
I just,
I'm sorry, Jane, I thought you were.
on the SAFER, this is on the SAFER too.
Okay.
What's your opinion? If we turn down a SAFER grant, are we ever going to get another one?
No. So FEMA has a long memory. We've tied that money up now since October. And if we don't take the grant, they say they don't put a black mark. But I can tell you that departments that generally will lay the people off at the end of the 3-year grant, it's probably a decade before they'll even get considered for another grant. So, and that's not just the SAFER grant, that's the Assistance to Firefighters grant, the Fire Prevention and Safety grant, or anything that has to come with FEMA, because it's the same people that are reviewing these grants, so.
For people who might be listening in without knowing, could you give us a 30-second, what is SAFER?
Yeah,
so the SAFER grant?
So the SAFER is a staffing grant through FEMA where they supplement the cost of full-time career employees to get us to that NFPA 1720 threshold to try to get our staffing better. It's the same grant that we got in 2018 when we hired the 6 people on that grant. It's a cost share. So the first 2 years of the grant, we have to come up with 25% of the cost. The federal government pays 75% of the salary and benefits. The last year, then it switches. We have to come up with 65% of the cost. They pay 35%. And then when it's done, then obviously they want the town to continue with those employees. So the total grant is over $400,000 in federal funds that are coming back to the town of Holden. That coupled with the grant we got in 2018 brings us to about $1.3 million in grant funding that we brought in to increase the staffing in the department.
Jane?
Well, we're all very pleased with those numbers. However, we are wholly dependent upon those SAFER grants. And I would like to see how the department could be properly staffed should they not be available to us. I'd like to hear what the answer is. How in fact, could we reduce our dependence on the SAFER grant?
Unfortunately, the only way for us to staff the department without the SAFER grant is to fully fund positions, which we've done a few over the last 5 years or so. That's really the only way. The days of call firefighters are kind of going by the wayside, especially in this area. It's creeped from Metro West to Central Mass, and now it's even getting out towards Western Mass. And it's a nationwide problem. It's just people don't volunteer like they once did.
People can't deal with all of the restrictions and the requirements of the job, because nowadays you have families that both spouses work, so they all have responsibilities at home. So for them to have that, and I'll use a name, Jack Cross was a deputy chief for us for many, many years. He gave his life to this department. He was here for every single call. The guy wouldn't take his shoes off till 10 o'clock at night in case he had to run out and go to a fire call. Those people are gone. Those people are not coming back. Those people, there's really nobody out there that has that passion anymore, or that a bit of availability to do the calls. So I think when we took over this ambulance back in 2009, the then town manager, Brian Bullock, his goal was for us to be within 4 or 5 years of taking over the ambulance, be up to 7 people a shift. Now, obviously, things changed, managers changed, priorities changed, and it's taken a lot longer to get to where we're at now, but that's really the only way to pay for this. It's very similar to the police. It has to be budgeted.
Can you help me out? What page is that frozen position on? Does anybody have it?
Current position?
Yes.
It's right on 101, I think. I think that's where the negative is.
Yeah, the negative number in the budget,
Yeah, 140.
the additional firefighter line is negative 149,268. So that's one position that we currently have, and which is open and frozen, and then the 2 savers.
I would like to propose for later discussion by the committee, opening this position up for fulfillment. Thank you.
So just the line above it is fully funding the same number of people as you had in the prior year, and then this one is backing that person out. In order to make the accounting simple, if we lose if we don't get the money to keep that position in, it's clear what we're losing here. I think that was the strategy in putting it.
Yeah, correct. So Lori Rose, when she went in and did this, we had that additional firefighter line in there from, I think 2 fiscal years ago when we added a firefighter. And it stayed in the budget, so it was cleaner just to put it in there so that you could see the difference in the funding.
It does help. The staffing would have been very level had that not been there. So it makes it easier to see that as well. So, Stephanie.
Russ, I had just 2 questions about 2 of the revenue lines that I was reading in your narrative. One was about how the Commonwealth reimburses you for the hazmat specialty that you have, and the other one was about the Medicaid reimbursements that you said are, questionable at this point with the federal funding. My question was that, maybe it's a Peter question, I don't ever recall seeing where those lines actually are. I don't think they're in your general revenue. Where do they live when they do happen?
So the hazmat, so that's basically, we have one firefighter who is a hazmat technician with the state hazmat team. So anytime he gets a call out, he gets paid through the department, and then the state reimburses us that cost. So there's a hazmat grant line that Lori has set up, so the money comes in and out of that line. So historically, I used to have 2 that were on that team, and it was in my overtime line. There was no way to delineate, so it was costing, we were using $20,000 of overtime money a year to fund these people to go to hazmat training, and when the reimbursement was coming into the town, it wasn't going back into the budget. So Lori and I, when I became chief, Lori and I looked at it, and we came up with a way to make it so that we weren't burning our overtime money on something that we were getting the money back. So that's where that is. But yes, it should, the way the budget is set up in the revenue line, that CPE grant has its own number in the revenue. So that's.
Revenue in this part of the budget? Is it in another part of the budget?
So in the budget, I don't have the book in front of me. Do you have it? I'm trying to remember what, how Lori has it. Every number, Paul, every number.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was-
No, no, no,
like I said,
no.
It was more of maybe a Peter question that I just wasn't sure where we were capturing any of that, so.
As user fees. Yeah, no, so the way that it's listed in here is it's just that's the EMS user fees. There are lines for those other two. Oh, here they are. They're on page 108. EMS intercept fees, that's basically where we say we go to Rutland because they don't have a paramedic, and our paramedic gets on their ambulance and does advanced life support. We charge them a flat fee to do that. The CPE grant, that's the money that comes from Health and Human Services at the federal level, and then the collections.
I see, okay, I'm sorry, I missed those.
Well, that's
Great.
okay. The ClearGov kind of
Yeah,
moves stuff around kind of weird, so.
and my 15-year-old nephew, who is in your program, was explaining to me the intricacies of 2 in, 2 out today, so thank you for bringing that up. Another question that I had was, I know.
Before you move
I'm
on
sorry.
from that,
Yep.
I asked Peter, I have a similar question I asked you earlier about the dispatch grants. There's $84,000 for the last couple of years for this EMS CPE grant. There's nothing in the budget this year. That's $85,000 of revenue that we have every anticipation of getting. Why aren't we putting it in the budget?
So Paul, if you look at my memo, we usually only account for the user fees because that's all we can control.
Right.
Right? That's input in, input out, input in, right? Those are our number of transported patients. Those are our Medicare. Those are our Medicaid. Those are our private insurance. The CPE grant it's really a grant from the federal government, and there's no guarantee that they're going to fund that money year to year. So it's very difficult for us to say, yeah, we're just going to throw it in there, because with the state of the federal government at this time and their zeal to cut Medicaid, which is where this money comes from. So they cut $880 million from Medicaid last year. They cut more from Medicaid in that big, beautiful bill act or whatever it was this year. On top of that, they've changed regulations for the state. So the Commonwealth, the way that they fund their Medicaid program, they've changed the way that they've done that. So what happens with that is it kind of shrinks it down, and there's no guarantee it's going to be there. And with the relationship between the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the federal government right now, I could see them pulling that money back, which is why I proposed to take that's the reason I proposed a change to the way we account for that money. And I worked with Lori Rose on that after I came up with the idea to do it differently. So we can do a warrant article at town meeting to make that recurring revenue for the Fire Vehicle Stabilization Fund, so it will go in there. In turn, that will free up $90,300 or $93,000 that Peter earmarked for the Fire Vehicle Stabilization Fund to be used in other parts of the budget. So it's basically like you're accounting for that revenue, but if this gets cut, it's only going to hurt the stabilization fund. It's not going to hurt the operating budget at the end of the fiscal year. That's my proposal as a compromise to kind of get it in there, but get it so that we're not going to be $90,000 short in June of 2027.
All right, so you brought up the stabilization fund. Now you're going to force me to go look at that. I didn't see that in there. Maybe I just.
It's at the bottom. It's at the bottom of that memo
I'm looking at the fund itself. Are we planning on getting that money into the?
No, it was a proposal that he sent via email a week or so ago.
Right. So we're working with the budget as presented here, and it's not reflected
Not
here.
in there, yeah.
So is this another $80,000 we can,
Am I putting that on my list?
put in here and then count on it at some point? We're going to have to come back to that, so I'll just bookmark that. Stephanie, you had another question.
I did.
I believe.
Sorry. I appreciate your explanation about how when you reduce staffing and you can't do as many ambulance rides, it reduces our actual revenue for the ambulance, because obviously we get paid every time there's an ambulance ride that goes out.
We hope to
and
get paid every time.
We do, 78% of the time or whatever, yeah, okay. And you had explained that you're projecting a loss of at least $300,000 of revenue. My question, just to understand where you were coming from, Are you doing that based on reducing one ambulance 12 hours a day? Or how did you come up with that?
Yeah, so I looked at reducing an ambulance 12 hours a day, dropping to one ambulance, because ultimately, we have to, if we're going to maintain 4 people on a shift at
Yep.
night, I have to provide some semblance of fire coverage.
Yep.
I have to have people back in town. I can't strip the town of everybody that's on duty.
Yep.
Like I said, we've been lucky for years, and it's just not a risk that we want to take anymore. So yeah, so I basically took, so last year, we did like 3,047-ish
Yep.
calls. Out of those numbers, hold on, let me pull up my numbers. So I want to give you the right number here. So out of those numbers of calls, we had 1,392 that happened at the same time, which is almost half of our call volume is simultaneous. So when one ambulance goes out, the other one's not far behind it. So what I did is I took, our calls, so I think our EMS to fire calls are 78%. I took 78% at EMS. I took the number of transports, and then, I used just kind of a round figure. Could be less than 300, could be more. It all depends on the insurance, right? So Medicare only pays us $636, no matter what we do to the patient. If somebody has Blue Cross, we charge them, all told, with all of our fees, they probably get a $2,400 bill. So it's a huge difference, it's a huge discrepancy. But what I was trying to show is if we have to reduce services and we have to reduce down to one ambulance, it's going to be a significant hit on the revenue, because we're going to have to rely on mutual aid for a lot of calls.
Which we don't get paid for.
Which we don't get a dime for.
Yeah.
We still have to respond, but we won't get anything, because you don't get anything until you take the patient to the hospital.
And have you seen in the data, is there specific times of day that ambulances are at all the time? Are there quiet periods? Is there anything? No,
There
it's
used
just
to be.
random.
So,
Okay.
so in 2018, when we did our first departmental review, when we were doing the SAFER grant back then, we found that our busiest times were 7 in the morning till about 8 o'clock at night, and then it was relatively somewhat quiet at night. But we've seen over the last 5 years, coming out of the pandemic and everything, that really it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Those trucks are out. They could go out and they could do 7 calls from midnight to 7 in the morning. There's just no rhyme or reason. And the other thing that we've seen since FY22, between FY22 and FY25, we've seen a 62% increase in calls just at the Oriole Healthcare facility alone. So they're really, kind of stretching us a little bit, which, it is what it is. But they have a lot of patients there. They have a lot of sick patients there, and they depend on our services. So we've become very busy.
Thank you.
Donna?
Chief, can you expand a little bit? I was curious about the mutual aid calls, because we are obviously facing tight financial times. So are the towns around us. And if we end up cutting back on the staffing levels because the override doesn't pass, that's a big if, I hope it does. Can you explain how the mutual aid works? So if another town calls us for mutual aid, are we just a good neighbor, or do we get to, I think if it's an ambulance, you get to bill for it. But if it's not an ambulance call and it's a fire call, are we just a good neighbor and help out, or is there any reimbursement going on there?
So on the fire side, there is no reimbursement.
Okay.
But we have mutual aid agreements with all of the surrounding towns.
Yeah.
And it's a practice in the public safety industry for mutual aid.
Yep.
So when we go to somebody else's fire, we don't anticipate any reimbursement. Every department, like I said, everybody's trying to stay at a standard, right? They're trying to be safe and make sure nobody gets hurt. So the more the merrier. That's what we do when we have a fire.
Yep. Yep.
Ambulance, yes. Ambulance, if we respond to Paxton or Rutland or West Boylston or whatever, we bill the patient directly. West Boylston, the other town has no claim on anything. But conversely, if they come here, it's the same way. So if Rutland sends an ambulance to Walgreens and they transport a patient to UMass, they bill the entire amount.
Yep.
We get nothing for that.
Okay.
So, but the one thing you did hit, and real quick, I want to hit on that, is everybody around us is facing a very difficult financial times. That's a whole other dimension in this reduction in services, right? Because if we're going to start depending on mutual aid to come here and do our calls, but they've cut staff, we may have to go to a town further out to get an ambulance. We can't depend on the city of Worcester because who knows what they do for their staffing. But I don't know how West Boylston is, but I know Rutland's facing an override, Paxton's facing an override. Sterling's just a little bit too far away, but we could use them. We don't typically because we try to geographically send the closest ambulance to the address. But yeah, that's a fear of mine. That's something that I have to keep in the back of my mind and see how all these things play out.
I have other questions too. Should I keep going or?
Sure. Yes.
Same question that I asked on the police side, the overtime budget. Did you make any changes there in anticipation of the cut occurring, or I think it went up significantly, so I was curious if it was because of possible reduced staff.
No. So I increased that before we talked about cutting positions. Historically, we've always been very good at making our budget work. In some respects, that's a detriment to us because we were able to do more with less. Our overtime line is historically, since the day I came to work here, we've overspent that line. Because like I said before, I have to maintain minimum staffing. I have to have, to be able to have Station 2 open during the day, the 12 hour, I have to have 5 people on duty. There's no question. I can't do it with 4. I can't split people up. So if someone's out, I have to fill the shift. If I have 2 open positions and somebody out IOD, then those 3 positions, I got to fill those day shifts on overtime. So I was trying to increase that overtime budget because we overspend it by so much. Because over the last 5 years, I don't think we've been fully staffed for 6 months, maybe 8, whether it's somebody getting hurt or somebody going to another department or whatnot. So, but yes, I look at that every year. I've been hesitant to increase it because we've been so tight the last couple and we've received a directive to level fund or level staff. So that's why this year I had to increase it.
Okay. Thank you. The other question that I had on the physical fitness stipend, we've got that, we increased that significantly coming into this year. We usually run around $8,000 or $9,000 of actual spend there. We upped it to $25,000 and this year up to almost $27,000. Is that a contractual number? Because you haven't spent anything on it yet.
So that is something that takes place in June. It's a physical.
It's a June expense?
It's a June expense. Okay. It is a contractual article in the firefighter's contract. It's part of their wellness program. The only way they can take part in it is they have to go out and get an annual physical from their physician. Their physician has to fill out a medical form for us that shows that they had certain things checked for their health and wellness. Then we put them through a physical fitness exam. There's 2 components to it. There's a physical fitness side of it, and there's a firefighter skills side of it. And then they're eligible for the stipend. So some years we might have 15 of them that go to their doctor, and then they're eligible for it. And some years we might only have 10. It all depends on what they choose to do. We have to fully fund it because if everybody gets a doctor's note and it comes in, then we have to pay it. So it's one of those contractual deals.
So it's contractual that they can do it.
Yes, correct.
They're not required
They are
to.
not required, no.
And typically, not everyone does it every year.
Typically, not everyone does it, but I have seen, as the department gets younger, that more people are taking part in it. Some of the older firefighters are not interested in going to their doctor, why, I have no idea. And they're also not interested in jogging around a track and doing push-ups and sit-ups. But as they start to age out and we get younger people in there, they're more interested in doing the physical fitness.
Interesting, okay. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Donna. Sarah?
I have a bunch of questions, so I'll
Okay.
just run through them until you tell me to stop. I think it would be really short-sighted to give up this SAFER grant. And I think that over the next 4 years, we are very likely to need additional staffing. The pressure on the healthcare system is not going to be going away. I don't know if anybody's needed to find a new primary care physician. They're essentially impossible to find. And I think that, there might be a lot of people in this town who don't realize how lucky we are to have the ability to get the response times that we have. There are other places in central Massachusetts where the response times are nowhere near as quick as they are here in Holden. And quite honestly, as a parent, it's just a risk that I don't think that we need to take. We also are quite special in the fact that we have, all of our firefighters are also paramedics. And that is quite unique. And ambulance runs do allow us to bring in revenue. So that's all to say, I'm going to be searching and trying to work with this committee to convince others that we can't even risk that SAFER grant by, putting it on the override cut list. So that's just one thing that I wanted to say. Do you know off the top of your head what our EMS collection rate is, and are you comfortable with it? I mean, I know we use a third-party billing. I know that it can be difficult. I know that there are often write-offs for indigent or folks we can't find. But do you know it, and are you comfortable with where it is? Is it in the realm of the industry norm?
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I haven't looked at it. Historically, it was around 90%. I mean, we do very well with what we put out. I think once we get through the legislative hurdles that are coming down the pike with the No Surprises Act type billing and patient protection stuff, and kind of get that behind us, I feel confident that this revenue will be a good stream every year. I mean, I think we've seen it increase significantly over the last 6 or 7 years. We've done a lot of things internally to make the collections better. So in 2019, we purchased a new software suite for our fire reporting, our EMS patient care reports, that allows our billing company to go directly into our system to pull the runs like every other day. Whereas previously it was once a week they'd come in and they would get a batch of PDF files. Now this links to their software, so it's like seamless, which we've seen that our collections have increased with that, right? The other thing that we've done in 2016 is we fired our previous vendor for billing because they were terrible and they were leaving a lot of money on the table, a lot of money. I wanted to sue them, the previous chief didn't, so we kind of let them go, but they left so much money on the table. And we went out, we found Coastal Medical Billing, they've been fantastic partners, and they're very, very attentive to what we do. So yeah, I think there's going to be growth there in the future. Once we get past the politics of everything that's going on at the State House and beyond, I think we'll be, we'll be good in the future. And then that's to say, as long as they don't get rid of Medicare, because 79% of our transports are Medicare patients. So if the federal government decides they don't want to pay for Medicare anymore, we might be in trouble. But I hope they're not even. Yeah, right. Yeah, well, you know, we had a presentation Monday. I don't know if you know, on Holden Street is Central Mass Emergency Medical Services Corporation. That's a regional council for EMS that's basically, it's kind of funded by Chapter 111. They get some money from the state, but it's a nonprofit, so they're able to raise, and they charge us money every year because we use the hospital radio system and all that. It's a whole thing. Very good presentation, but the one fact that they brought to light, and this was a legislative event, was there's no mandate to provide EMS in Massachusetts. There's a mandate to provide fire services. There's a mandate to provide police services, but there's no mandate to provide EMS. So we're lucky that our EMS is rolled into the fire department. We do provide it. There's some communities in Massachusetts that don't provide EMS. They don't have an ambulance. We have one right over here in New Braintree that doesn't have an ambulance. So, but, you know, there's going to be a lot of changes coming to EMS in Massachusetts over the next couple of years. Hopefully there's some movement to try to progress it and make it better. So we got that going for us.
I'm going to keep going if I can. I want to ask you the same question that I asked the police chief about the senior center and the cuts to that department. Do you want me to repeat it or? No. Okay, you got it. Thank you.
And I got it. No, so we do work very, very closely with the senior center. You know, their outreach workers are fantastic. They do a lot for us. If our firefighters identify a senior in need on a call, you know, an EMS call, fire call, you know, we can have our SAFE coordinator, our public education coordinator, get in touch with the outreach workers, and they come up with a plan for the senior. It's worked well for years. This past year, we've actually put together a group that works with the senior center. So it's fire, it's police, it's EMS, it's public health, and then the outreach. And they get together and they review people in need and things like that. So they're a very big part of what we do. And they, you know, short of people thinking of the senior center as a place for people to go, they do a lot behind the scenes.
I also want to ask you the same question about the Trout Brook pavilion, or if you have any comment on that. Just really trying to figure out, you know, what our options might be.
So, I shut my mic off. So the pavilion, the outdoor pavilion, I haven't seen the conditions of the roof. I haven't been down there this, probably since last summer. But I mean, if it's something that needs to be, keep people out of them, on board with that. I mean, I think there's ways to do it. I think it's tough because, like you said, it's such a remote location, and there's so many people there all summer and spring and fall, and people tend to not follow directions sometimes, especially when they're not in public view. So, but anything that we can do to assist in securing that location, I think we would be more than happy to be a part of.
Al, were you going to ask about EMS revenue? Of course. I was going to say, I'm going to leave that to you.
My favorite subject, Chief.
Yeah, tell me about it, Al.
I hear you about this.
If it's not one thing, you're very consistent.
Yeah. We've got another hour or so.
Oh, sure, why not?
I hear you about the state of flux of laws and Washington and the whole bit, but still it strikes me. I mean, your estimate for EMS revenue of 1.35 is less than you've actually collected any of the last 3 fiscal years. Mm-hmm. Can we have some wiggle room on that? I mean, even an estimate of 1.5 would take care of your additional firefighter that wash each other out.
Right.
Then we could close the books on your department, and we could all be happy.
If I give you 1.5, you're going to give me my 3 guys?
What?
If I give you 1.5, you're going to give me my 3 positions?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, seriously, I mean.
Well, you know,
Nobody gives anything here. We have to take it in front of town meeting. But
here's the thing with the revenue, and I get where you're coming from, and I'd love to give you $2 million if I could. The one thing we have to realize with that, now I've been in meetings. I sit on the board of directors for the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts, and so I'm close to this legislative stuff. I've had conversations with our legislative agent who spends his time at the State House with the senators and the governor. I was in a meeting with Senator Moore, who was the one that sponsored this bill, this Healthcare Patients' Rights Act bill, on Monday, and it's coming. Here's the problem with it, and this is why I want to have a buffer in here, is once that becomes law, so this is the way that it's going to be. And I've spoken to our billing company about it as well, because they deal with some customers in New Hampshire who recently enacted one of these laws. New Hampshire's a disaster. The communities themselves can't figure out what they want to do. I don't think we're going to have that problem here. Once this bill, the way it looks right now, it's very positive for us. And moving forward, it will be very positive. We can set whatever rates we want, and the insurance companies will have to pay it, 100%. I just, if I wanted to look at that analytically, like Al looks at stuff analytically, I don't see that happening right away. I see once that becomes law, the municipalities, such as us, we have to comply with it right away, which means we can't balance bill anymore. Now, we balance bill a lot of patients. So what we're talking about balance billing is, if you have Blue Cross Blue Shield and you have a high deductible plan and we transport you to the hospital, they may only pay $1,000 of your bill because you still have $1,500 left on your deductible. That means then there's $1,500 that we then have to bill the patient. Now, sometimes they pay it, sometimes they don't, which is why we have a collections line. We won't be able to do that anymore. So the insurers, there's no penalties in this law. So it doesn't say if Blue Cross doesn't pay the town of Holden the extra $1,500 for this patient by this law, they get fined $10,000. There's none of that. So it's going to take time for these insurers to get up to speed with what we're doing here. They're a big business. They have a seat at the table there. I'm surprised that it's made it this far. But I think once that law goes into place, we're going to see some drop in revenue for a short time, hopefully. And then once we get to the insurers all being on board, we'll get back up there. I just recently spoke to the Chief Coleman, the fire chief in Auburn. They are a little bit different than us. They have an enterprise account for their EMS, but they stopped balance billing altogether. And he said they did. Once they stopped balance billing, yes, there is a decrease in your collectibles. So that's what I'm, out of the user fees, that's what I'm trying to keep a little bit of reserve, so if this happens in FY27, when we come to June, we're not $100,000 or $200,000 short, and then we have to figure out where that money's, or Peter's going to have to figure out where that money's coming from to balance the budget at the end, right? That's why I came up with that idea and I know you look at the line as a whole. Now, the FFR stuff is going away. That's going to go away either with that bill, or the Healy administration is talking about sending an executive order out to just do away with it entirely right now. It's an election cycle. That's something that people are complaining about, so it's easy for the administration to fill out an executive order and say, here you go, no more collections for ambulance bills. That's going away. That CPE grant, like I said, it's skeptical. I'm skeptical that Secretary Kennedy is going to keep pouring money into that Medicaid with the way it's going. So that's why I think it's a good idea. I can get you $90,000 by putting that CPE in the stabilization account and free that up. And that gets you, so if you take that $90,000, put it to the 135, you're almost at 1.5. And it's safer.
I'd suggest we think about doing that. I mean, that would be a big chunk of your additional firefighter right there.
Oh, yeah, it's in my proposal. I proposed to do that. Yeah. Because that's a good way, so for me, that's a good way for me to rationalize, all right, I'm going to take the CPE, we're going to put it in stabilization, it's going to be over here, it's good because we can use it to buy the new ambulances, right? Because that's what we use stabilization for now. The fire stabilization is to replace our ambulances. Because obviously, with the price of fire apparatus, we're not saving that much money to buy an apparatus like we did in the past. So if we take that CPE, we put it in the stabilization account, then if they ever do cut it, it doesn't harm the operating budget in that fiscal year, and we can revisit it. So
We
I
do have
think
to pay more ultimately for the ambulance because we won't have it saved up, so.
if it gets cut, but
Yeah.
if it doesn't get cut, then it'll be it's a good primer, you know? So I think it's a good compromise.
Yeah, I think we could, probably find the other 50K somewhere. I mean, just to pick a number, OPEB. If we took OPEB and we took your grant, you've now got your additional firefighter, and we can put you away for another year and worry about the other departments.
Yeah, I'm willing, when I talked to the town accountant about it and how we would go about doing it. So, because every town does this differently with the CP. Some people use it as a grant. They put it as a grant line. Some people put it as directly back into a department budget. Some people buy cars with it. They do all kinds of stuff with it. We've always historically put it in general revenue. But I think it's a good compromise, and she kind of came up with the mechanics of how we do it by that warrant article that says it's recurring revenue in fire vehicle stabilization, and then, it kind of frees that money up, and it gets you that 90,000, 93,000 to,
But as a practical matter, I guess this is more for the town manager. I think we as a committee would need more assurances on that 90,000 long before we get to town meeting, so that we can use it elsewhere in the budget.
Assurances how?
Well, from what I understand, you're going to put a warrant article to garner that $90,000, if you will. What if the warrant article were to fail? And where do we put that $90,000 theoretically between now and that town meeting warrant? I guess that's the real question. Whether it fails or not, doesn't matter. How do we deal with that $90,000 as a budget balancer now?
I still don't know what you're asking. What do you expect?
Well-
What do you want me to do with it?
I would say, not that I know what I'm talking about, but, I mean, I would think if we're going to earmark that 80, well, it's generally 84,000, I think is what this year's number is. It's not on here, but, we've gone through the process. I think it was 84. I think if we're going to earmark that in that warrant article, that kind of pigeonholes that into the stabilization, right? So then I would think, then for the manager, he just wouldn't put that 90,000 in earmarked for stabilization. You just move it to the budget, right? I mean, I would find it hard to believe that a warrant article like that would fail, because it's.
You're asking what I'm asking, Peter, is where is that $90,000 going to show up on the budget overview? It needs to be moved somewhere soon so that we can deal
I
with
guess just it would just move into
effectively.
revenue on the resource profile.
Okay.
Other local receipts or?
How about in my
Yeah, exactly.
full-time firefighters line? That'd be a good place for it.
Al, anything else?
We're good.
Peter, do you know if the Oriole Healthcare property owners are tax exempt or not? Is it a nonprofit healthcare org? You sure about that?
I'm not sure.
I'm asking because of pilots. Payment in lieu of taxes, which some communities have attempted, some successfully, some very unsuccessfully, to negotiate a payment in lieu of taxes for tax-exempt property owners. But in particular, it can be quite effective for nonprofit healthcare organizations where they're receiving sort of outsized public services, as the fire chief mentioned. And a lot of those ambulance runs, as he also mentioned, are not, they're subsidized, right? Because if somebody has public health insurance, the reimbursement rates are actually lower than the typical real cost of delivering those services. in my experience. So it's not. Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall that property being off the rolls.
Okay.
So is that
Good.
a question we want to follow up on? Is how much are they paying? Are they paying anything? Just
Yeah, that's easy. I can check the database
the assessor
online.
be able to tell us almost instantly what their
Yep.
tax bill is.
Thanks. Thanks, Claude.
The last line in your budget is called fire capital, but it's not in the capital budget. It's $22,000. Every year, it's a nice round number, but it's not explained in here. Can you refresh me on
So
what that is?
that was done FY '22, I think we put that in there. So originally, that line was called radio capital. It was like a $5,000 capital line. It's only for the fiscal year. It expires. It's not like the town manager's capital. We have to spend it within the fiscal year. Every year, we used to do a capital project for gear, and I think it was Dave White proposed, and we did, and it was made that way. We took that capital line that we requested every year for gear and just rolled it into the budget, and that's what that is.
It's such a recurring item that it became almost like an operational item, so they just
Yeah.
said, stop with the capital.
Yep, so that's what it was. I mean, basically, it's for protective gear. It's not really radio capital anymore, because like the police chief said, you can't buy a radio for less than $10,000 anymore anyway, so, but yeah, so that's what that is. We replace our turnout gear and helmets and boots and gloves and protective stuff in that line. That's, that's another cost that's going up.
Yep.
So as of January 1st, 2027, we're required to purchase gear that does no longer contain PFAS by state law, which means that comes with a higher price tag than the current gear that we're buying now, because it's the newest and greatest, and it doesn't last as long. So PFAS apparently held everything together. So that's going to be another cost going forward.
Okay, so we've got a couple other, we talked briefly about the Fire Equipment Stabilization Fund, page 253 in our budget. We've been trying to save, every year we try to put enough in here to buy a third of an ambulance, so that over 3 years you can replace one of the ambulances. This year, that proposal's been cut back by 2/3, or by 1/3, I'm sorry. What's the plan for ambulance replacement? How do we come up with 93,154 as a number? And can you talk to us a little bit about that?
It was a remainder. I don't remember what it was a remainder of, but it was whatever was left over.
What was that?
For the 93 rather than the 150.
I think that the 93 was kind of what you put in there, what we could afford this year, this fiscal year. Usually it's 150,
Yeah.
but you had to cut it because
Right.
of the budget crisis.
So there's no great science there, you just knew you couldn't afford the full 150, so you put,
It was some remainder of whatever we were looking at the time, so we just said, okay, we'll just throw that onto it instead of the 150.
right, and we know we're threatening not to have saved enough for next ambulance, but that's a risk we have to take. Okay.
And I think in the previous fiscal years, we kind of skipped that. We skipped putting any money in it at all. It looks like FY '23, FY '24, and FY '25, there was nothing put in that account, so.
Yeah, and let me add on to that, because when the 150 that we had been using, I remember asking you last year, what's the cost of a new ambulance? And saving $450,000 over a 3-year period is not enough to purchase an ambulance. You're at least, I believe, 100,000 short. So whatever year that we do purchase a new ambulance, and I think we get them every
Every 3 is the rotation. We have one on the capital plan for FY '28. It takes, we ordered one, what year did we order that? '24? July of '24, we ordered the newest, and we still don't have it. So
right.
we're hoping to get it in January of '27. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Right.
They've gone up in price to like $550,000 now. But hopefully there's some, lawsuits out there, some class action lawsuits with the specialty vehicle manufacturers and their price gouging and their monopolies. So hopefully, maybe we'll see some relief from that. I tend to doubt it, but
But in the year that we do buy one, we're going to have to come up with additional funds in addition
This
to what
is
we've been
only
saving.
defraying the cost.
Yeah.
And we're looking at defraying a bigger cost. So then your capital plan itself, page 242 in our book, and then after that, we have a 5-year plan, which has more detail on it. They have requested $225,000 for breathing apparatus, which is still in the budget after the manager's cuts. There's a borrowing for engine 3, $1.1 million, which was removed from the plan. There was a Lucas chest compression system for the ambulance for $22,000, which was removed. Hose and nozzle replacements, $15,000 was removed from the budget. And then an ECG monitor replacement is $60,000 and is still in the budget. Can you talk a little bit about what those 3 items that were, well, actually, briefly about each of them, what it is and why you think you need them, and then what happens if you don't get it?
Sure. So the SCBA replacement is to replace all our self-contained breathing apparatus. It's what our firefighters wear when they go into a dangerous environment, a fire or hazardous materials or stuff like that. We purchased the current SCBA in 2011. So they're going to reach end of life in 2027.
Wow, 15 years already.
Yep. So the bottles will no longer be able to be hydro tested, so we won't be able to use them anymore. And the packs are now starting to cost us thousands of dollars to repair because, like everything else, they have computer chips in them. So they're starting to fail. So if you remember back last year, we had put in for a FEMA AFG grant to replace them. We did not successfully get that grant. So we had put $60,000 in the capital budget last year, which would have been our cost share of the grant if we had received it. So we're actually taking that $60,000 and starting to purchase the bottles with that. So that kind of defrays some of the cost in 27 and 28. We were able to kind of manipulate it a little bit based on what we need to purchase, and at a given time. We were able to break up some of the bottles because some of them were a little bit newer. They were, I think, a year apart because we had older packs that we had bought different kind of bottles for. So that's kind of what that is.
Chief, for people who may be watching this and are not aware, we're talking about the fiscal year 27 budget now. So when we talk about this year, we're talking about fiscal year 27.
Yep.
When he says fiscal year 28, it sounds a long way off, but it's actually next year.
Right.
So this is not the distant future he's forecasting. It's next year in budgetary terms.
Correct. So those are very, we have to replace them. It's, we can't put air tanks on people's backs that can't be tested and certified that they're safe to fill with air. So that's that project. The Lucas Press is a manual CPR device that we have in all of our ambulances. It allows our paramedics to care for a patient in the back of the ambulance without having to stand up and do CPR while they're driving down the road, so it's a safety thing. You find that a lot of paramedics in the industry get injured because they're kind of a projectile in the back of the ambulance when they're not strapped in, and somebody slams the brakes on, somebody hits the ambulance, that they get thrown about the compartment. So that's what that is. The LifePak 15, no, it's not a LifePak 15. The ECG monitor, it's a LifePak 35 now. So those are the cardiac monitors our paramedics use to do 12-lead EKGs, defibrillate. They do capnography, all the different skills on patients, cardiac arrest, shortness of breath. You name it, we use the monitor for it. The last one that we purchased was with, wasn't ARPA funds. What was the one, the COVID money before the ARPA funds? Whatever, the CARES Act. So we bought the last monitor in 2020. So that, the newest one is 6 years old. This is to replace one that we bought, I believe, in 2017. So it's almost 10 years old. They stopped servicing these or warrantying them after 5. And these LifePak 15s, which we have 4 of them now, they're reaching end of life and end of service. So Physio or Stryker, who's the manufacturer of them, will not even open the case to fix them after a certain period of time. So it's time to start replacing them. Let's see, the attack hose and nozzle. So this is a project to replace our tactical hose that the firefighters pull off the truck to enter a fire. It's our smaller, a couple of years ago, we did a project to replace our supply line, which was our big 4-inch line. This is the smaller lines. It's like 1 3/4, 2.5, 2-inch line that we use to advance on a fire with, and the nozzles that go with it. A lot of our stuff is starting to age. This hose is, it gets a lot of wear and tear on it. We have a lot of, when we hose test, we have a lot of them that fail and we have to dispose of them. So that was what this project was for. But a good note on this one is we've been using some grant programs to purchase items like nozzles and hydrant assist valves and things like that to kind of keep ourselves current. But because the MBTA Communities Act failed, a lot of these grants through the Commonwealth we're not eligible for anymore. So we have a DFS equipment grant, which we just recently applied for $19,000 that we're not going to be able to get funded because of we're not compliant with the MBTA Communities Act, along with a host of other. I'm up to about, with that and the federal FEMA grants that are being held up by the Commonwealth, I'm at about $81,000 in grant loss. That's stuff that we get on an annual basis. So that's kind of this project being cut, and then our loss of the equipment grant kind of puts us kind of behind the 8 ball with this equipment, this type of equipment. And then the last one, the engine 3 replacement. So that is, engine 3 is our 4th Class 1 pumper that is stationed down at the south end of town, down at Station 2. It is the oldest one that we have in the fleet. It's a 2005 HME fire apparatus that is reaching the end of its life. It's a truck that we use gingerly because it seems like every time we have to put it into service, it ends up down the DPW on a lift. So the fact of the matter is it's there because typically these trucks, we replace it on a 20-year cycle. We're at the 20-year cycle now. The reason it's on the capital plan now is because it could take us 2 to 3 years to get it. So that'll put it at almost 28 years. 23 years, 23 to 24 years old by the time we get it. Similar to the ladder, which we still haven't received. They're trying they're saying that they're going to have some lines that are going to reduce the wait time, but I'll believe it when I see it because I really haven't seen any trucks that are coming in quick for anybody. So that's why that's there. The other side of that is when you look at our plan, like you look at the 5-year plan, our engine 1, which is a 2009, is also down at Station 2. That is the primary apparatus for the south end of town. So that's a 2009. It's only 4 years newer than engine 3. That truck has the most wear and tear in the department on it. It's got the most mileage, the most hours, and it's been in need of the most repairs. I think we just spent $5,000 on it a couple weeks ago. So the engine 3 replacement is important because that would take the place of engine 1 as a primary unit down there. And, engine 1 is in the process of starting to deteriorate. So that's kind of why it's there.
So as a pumper, it carries water, so it doesn't need access to a hydrant?
So all the trucks we have, with the exception of the new ladder, have water on them. They have all the engines have 750 gallons of water on them. and the tanker's got 2,500 gallons. That it's also an engine, but it has a 2,500 gallon tank on it. But we still need the hydrants. We still need, if we're using, a couple hundred gallons a minute, it doesn't last long.
Other questions? Donna?
This might be a longer discussion, so we might want to defer it because it might be more for Peter, but the facilities plan for Adams Road, we talked briefly about it on your overview. So we've got the trailers at Adams Road now for their offices. They're keeping the equipment in the bays that are there that we eventually are going to tear down. Is the long-term intent for that location to stay there at Adams Road? Or I saw something about maybe moving its location. Or do we not know yet?
We don't know.
We don't know yet. Okay, that's fine. That's good enough for now. It's years down the road, right?
We're working on it.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we've covered fire, capital, and the stabilization fund for fire. So, community risk reduction, page 109. For the folks at home, just a brief overview of what this department does.
I keep shutting this thing off, Paul. Community risk reduction is the division of the fire department that handles all of our public outreach, emergency planning, emergency management, public education, and public health. So the health department falls under us. Emergency management, which would be sheltering, evacuation planning, continuity of operations planning, stuff like that. Public education, obviously our SAFE coordinator, our public education coordinator, it's the same person. They go into schools, they do fire education, they do senior education for safety. We do some EMS components in this budget as well, although nothing really comes out of it. We do, our EMS coordinator works with the community risk reduction program, doing CPR, we do car seat installations, stuff like that. All that kind of stuff falls under this budget.
So this budget, the only increases are in labor costs. Are there any
That's correct.
questions on?
Are there any additional grants that you're losing here?
So we're losing two right now. So annually, we usually get the Emergency Management Preparedness Grant through FEMA. It's a pass-through through MEMA at the state level. We usually get $4,600 a year for that. That is nowhere to be seen this year. I don't know if it's being held up at the state. I've heard it's being held up at the state level because they don't want to agree to the terms of the grant from the federal government. So we're not anticipating seeing that money. And then we also have a CERT grant that basically funds our CERT team, who are volunteers. And I think that one's usually around $6,000. We haven't heard anything about that one either. So we're going to be about, a little, huh? Oh, yes, and the opioid grant. So, as part of the regional consortium that we're part of, we had applied and were awarded an $80,000 total grant, but the funding from the state was $40,000, and we were notified that we are not eligible for that grant either because of the MBTA's Community Act non-compliance. So our portion of that grant will not be funded.
What was the value of that one?
The total grant itself was $40,000, but it was spread.
40,000?
Yeah, but it was spread out. It's
spread
spread out
across.
over how many towns? Like six
So-
towns. Yeah. So the other 5 towns will get their part of the $40,000, but we're not going to get ours. So
Did you say that's on top of the 80,000 that you already mentioned we're losing?
no, that's included.
No, okay,
Yeah, that's
okay,
included.
just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anything else on emergency prep? Public safety building, a couple pages further on. Questions for the chief about this? the fuel line is the dramatic increase here. It's being brought up to a more realistic level based on the last couple of years of actual expenses. But it's a $8,000 increase, which is a significant increase, but we've been spending the money anyway. We're going to spend the money, so.
Yeah, I think, overall, we're getting closer to where the actual costs are. The way I look at this budget is it's a sunk cost, right? We have to turn the lights on and we have to heat the building. And, they don't like it when we don't pay the bill, so they get mad at us, especially the light department. They get angry. So, no, it's just I tried to get a cost estimate. I had got a cost estimate for the lighting, the electrical costs at the public safety building. They're usually very good about giving us a kind of a rough number of what we're looking at, if they're anticipating a rate increase or something like that. So I try to work with HMLD to get, a round number of what they feel our facility is going to use. So that's pretty straightforward. The water, public safety, water and sewer, that stayed the same.
Yeah.
The maintenance contracts, we're getting some good data on that. We're getting everything aligned with the contracts and kind of making sure that we're where we need to be with the maintenance and stuff on the building. Right now, we do have, we have a lot of issues with the geothermal system that's in that building. It's very costly. Every year, we're probably spending $20,000 to $25,000 on repairs. And, it's just, we've already replaced the brain for the building at least twice in 15 years. So, the maintenance upkeep is very expensive.
See no other questions on the building, so I think we have covered all the topics for the chief. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys coming in.
Thank you.
I love the documentation you provide. It's very helpful. So we have our our patiently waiting regional dispatch team. While they're arriving, I will tell people who may not know, we have a dispatch center in the public safety building that does dispatch for multiple departments within this town of Holden, as well as for 4 other communities, or 3 other communities, 4 in total, for which we get reimbursed by those communities. It's a regional effort. So, welcome. Thank you for waiting. As usual, we're going to just bypass a list of your accomplishments and things in the past and just kind of jump into what you're looking at for next year. So questions on the operational budget?
Oh, what page?
121-ish. The budget itself starts on 122 with the...
Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, thanks.
So while you guys are looking, I will ask a question. I asked Peter earlier today, and he gave me an answer, and I don't understand the answer, so I will ask a question again. On page 123, there's regional dispatch full-time wages are up $200,000 from last year. In the explanation, it mentions that there's a $200,000 grant from the state to help offset the wage increases. And I asked Peter why that isn't. Is that reflected somewhere else in our budget in general revenues or something? And I believe your answer was no, it's not reflected there because we don't get it until August, or I didn't quite understand why we don't get a lot of things until later in the year, why we don't account for it. Is there something else about that grant that?
Well, they literally don't award it, so we can't account for it until they award it, and then we don't get it until, we probably don't get the cash until October. So Laura uses it as a grant account, and she draws down from it, and because we've already spent, a quarter of the year out of our own budget, then she puts whatever's left over into free cash.
So let me just paraphrase that, see if I understand what you're saying. we get this grant every year, but there's basically the same discussion we just had with the fire chief. We get this grant every year, but there's no guarantee we're going to get it next year. So we don't want to build a budget counting on it. And since they don't even award it, it's not like it's awarded to January 1 and we get it in the summer. They don't even award it until the summer. So you're uncomfortable putting it in the budget because it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, it's not just our method. It's, DOR has suggested that this is the best practice, and this is apparently what other regional dispatches do as well, so.
All right. Okay, questions? Stephanie?
Hi. I saw in your 5-year plan that you're looking to potentially build a building for you guys. Will that be in Holden, or what's the plan?
Ideally, we're expecting it to be in Holden. We're working with the state 911 and state, everyone that would work with us on this, but we're not going to, so far we haven't paid for any of the feasibility studies. Right now they're working on an engineering study. My intent is for the town not to pay for any of it. We may provide the land if we have town-owned land that we think would work. It is with it's in the best interest of the state because they want us to expand. We've had a very positive, I think, successful example of how dispatch should run in Holden, and so they've asked us to, time and time again, add more towns. We're out of space. There's absolutely no way we could add another town with what we've got at the public safety building. So the only answer is to, if that's in their interest, that they want us to expand, then they have to provide us with the location.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. Any grants at risk for the MBTA Communities Act not passing?
Not that I'm aware of, no. It's a different, and I'm not entirely sure the fire grants are at risk either, because fire grants were sort of pulled over the last year for non-compliant MBTA communities, and then they were, it was a mistake, and so they came back to us. There's certain political barriers that I think some are unwilling to cross, and public safety is one of them sometimes, so, but definitely not dispatch.
Okay. Thank you.
I feel bad that we don't have more questions because you guys have been waiting all night long, but your comments in the budget were excellent, and we can understand what's going on here, and I think we've talked about it in prior years, too, about how the whole regional system works and all. So.
In retrospect, we should have thrown the police chief out and
And had you go first. Yeah, next year, get up at the table.
But I did, so going back to the wages line is the significant, one of the significant increases, and the overtime is another in your budget. Why is the wage line going up 27%? You mentioned currently under contract negotiations. Is that the sole
That must have been an old narrative, because
Yeah.
we settled the contract. There were significant salary increases as a result of, again, comparisons to other towns. We're way under what, say, Rutland and neighboring towns, regional dispatches were paying, so we had to come up to market. Jocelyn did the great job of getting an increase in our grant, because our grant was also underfunded comparatively to a lot of other districts. So with that, we balanced it out, and we're able to provide a market rate for the dispatchers, and at the same time, the state covered most of it.
Yes, thank you.
So in 2 years, it just, again, I'm boggled by this line. Maybe I'm not understanding it. Our actual numbers are in the $250,000 range, and our budget number is $900,000. There's something else going on in this line other than just market rate and wages. Full-time dispatch wages count 5117.
So our share is 250, is that what you're talking about? Because it's
I'm just looking at that wages line, and the actual numbers for 2024 and 2025 are $250,000. Our budget last year was $700, and our budget this year is $900. So we're actually seeing a third to a quarter of the actual expenses. So I'm wondering if there's something else going on in this account that she does the local money we raise, and I know there's a revenue line for municipal fees. I assume that's the money we bill out to the other 3 communities to come in. But, and we haven't greatly expanded the staff in the last couple of years, right? And we haven't tripled people's wages, so I don't understand why the number has increased so dramatically. Seems like we're budgeting based on last year's budget, but you look back a couple of years to the actuals, and they're very, very different.
Right, I don't know, I'll have to check with Lori on it.
Wait, did we suggest it's because of the reimbursement from the grant? Like, we have to carry the full cost and pay, and then the budget line gets, those things get transferred
It
to the
could be.
grant? I bet you
That's what I'm
that's what it
thinking.
is.
It could be, except that we are also counting that revenue in the revenue line.
Right,
So,
yeah. I was just trying to quickly find it in the year-to-date. I don't know if anybody has it marked. I was curious to see if it looks higher, and then ultimately, when we close the books, it comes down, because she transfers some of those expenses to another line.
typically they don't match grant money received against expenses. Just municipal accounting just always shows it gross. I never liked that. I argued with her for decades over it, but she's the authority, so I don't prevail. And then the dispatch overtime line is up very significantly, account 51350. But that to me seems rational, because it looks like you're going toward a more actual number.
Yeah.
Whereas we've under budgeted in prior years. And so that would raise the question of, why are we experiencing so much overtime?
Well, we're fully staffed, and, you know, the longer you're there, you build your time. So the comp time, the vacation time, people take their time. Sick time, yeah, when we have a dispatcher out, like we have a dispatcher going out shortly, so we're gonna have to cover her shifts.
And that will be done with overtime by other,
Yeah, yep. Yeah, we do have part-timers, but if they can't cover the shift, then it goes out to overtime.
okay. Yeah, you see the part-time wages are also creeping up, but not unusually so.
Paul, looking back on the actual expenditures and the revenue, the expense report we got through December, in that full-time dispatch, we've only spent $179,758. If we double that, we're somewhere around 350, 360 out of a budget that's 717. So
What was the December number again?
we spent $179,758.52.
Okay, thank you.
There's no seasonality in that number, right? You have the same number of people all year long and have roughly the same experience of overtime and so forth.
It's not, I'll have to get you an answer on that. I know it's Lori's accounting, and I think she does something like she draws it all out of the grant money at first, and then it slowly kicks into what we're paying. I'll get an explanation on that if you note that. Okay. But I remember that from last year. It was something like that. Like she's drawing down like a grant fund first, and that's why it doesn't reflect.
That would explain the lack of half being paid in 6 months. It doesn't explain why other prior years' actuals are a third or a quarter of what the budget is. So either way, we'll get an answer, which will be educational to us. Other questions for our dispatch team that should have come first?
I have a capital question.
Oh, thank you for raising it. So their capital is 183?
Not page 183, 183,000.
Oh, so it's going to be on that same page, 243, and because all the capital's on the same page. All right, so you had a capital question.
Well, it's going to. Yeah, do you want them to explain them, or do you just want us to jump in? Okay. I just want you to give me the layperson's explanation for the microwave, because I know that when we get extra scrutiny and more questions from folks who look at our budget more closely this year, given that we're likely to have an override, they're going to say, What are they cooking in that microwave?
So we connect to Paxton and West Boylston through fiber. We connect to Princeton with a microwave. It's satellite dishes. So your radios, your phones, the computer programs, they all link through the satellite dishes. So we actually merged with Princeton in 2014, so it's at least 12 years old. It's kind of running out of storage, I guess, in short term. And it's time for maintenance on it. We have never done maintenance on it, so it's really just, there's a lot that needs to come with it. They were estimating the whole replacement would be 60 to 70,000. So for right now, it's kind of more of a temporary fix with the maintenance on it, replacing it, and then also upping the storage on it.
Okay, so this is the hardware that allows us to communicate with Princeton.
Correct.
I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I would ask her to just briefly go through each of those capital items and what it is and why it's important to you.
So the microwave is the first one. We have the dispatch server upgrades. So currently, we are linked to the whole town's server and all of our other towns. So if West Boylston or Paxton or one of our other towns, say someone hacked into it or it got some type of virus, I mean, it's going to come into the town. So we need to separate it, and that was one of the IT's suggestions. One of their major suggestions was you need to get off it, just separate dispatch. You guys are too big of an entity. Same kind of goes with the networking switch upgrades. Those are over 5 years old, so those definitely need an upgrade. The strobe and the access button, it's in dispatch, the big strobe.
Connects to the cells.
Yeah, it connects to the cells, so if there was like an emergency and they need help, like we get the alert. There's no replacement parts for that right now, so they're looking at an estimate to replace it would be about 5,000. And our video server is over 7 years old. So again, it's pretty much end of life. It's not working really well. It's not compatible with what we have in dispatch, and the support ended in 2023, so we need to replace that.
Questions on?
And
Capital.
these were all IT projects that were strongly advised by our IT company, our outside source, saying that they are at critical at this point. That's why they didn't come out.
Yeah.
Did we start the separation of the network? I thought we did that last year, no? Or I'll have to look in last year's book. I thought we had done something with that, because we've talked about that before, separating them
talked
off
about
the
this.
network. But maybe we deferred it. Okay, I'll look.
Any other questions for Communications Center? So this budget, as currently proposed, is $1.2 million, of which we get back $500,000 from the surrounding community. So a great deal of the cost of running the center is subsidized. And then we get this state grant later in the year. So I think it's a good deal for the town. I certainly don't get any complaints or hear anything about it, so evidently serving its purpose well.
If you ever, I mean, I have the police radio in my office frequently, and I know the rest of you don't, but it's pretty amazing listening to them, especially when, as Russ was saying, sometimes, we've got both ambulances out, it's one of those things where it kind of rains when it pours, and you get just crazy amounts of stuff happening at one time. It may be quiet for some time after that, but when it does, if you listen to the professionalism of our dispatchers and what they do to coordinate, not just Holden resources, but usually several towns at once, and it makes a big difference.
Very good. Thank you very much. Appreciate your patience. So one thing that we need to talk about, which we have not and will not do tonight, I think, is a 5-year capital plan. So that should get pushed till next week. FinCom miscellaneous, just note that on Monday, the school committee is holding their final budget hearing and vote on their budget. So anyone who's interested in what that number is going to be can go to that meeting and/or watch it on TV. something I just wanted to mention to Peter was we talked earlier this spring about the senior center is 25 years old. And we want to throw a celebration of that and have a kind of a big party here. I had asked you earlier in the year if there was any money in the selectmen's events kind of budget, and you had indicated it was all earmarked for things. That celebration here has now been pushed off till September because the parking lot project is going on, and the parking lot project is due to be done 10 days before the celebration was supposed to happen, but nobody can guarantee it is going to be done, and we don't want to have the celebration with the parking lot 30% done or 70% done. So it's been pushed off to September. So now I'm hoping that we can get some money from the BOS in either by putting it in their budget during this cycle or dedicating money that they've already got in their budget, you know, $3,000, $5,000, whatever. I don't know what an appropriate amount would be.
I was thinking we should probably fully fund the events line. I know I cut it in half, but we're also hosting the Little League State Championship in Holden this year. So in the past, we've had a shuttle bus to bring people to the restaurants and whatnot, and we usually, what was used to be the EDC would man a booth and hand out, you know, materials so that people would know where to go in Holden and whatnot. So we get about, I think, several thousand people come to that over the course of the 3 or 4 days that they have it. So that and the senior center celebration, I think maybe it would be a good idea to fully fund the events line, which is I think I brought it down to 10,000. It's normally 20.
So, excuse me?
She was asking what the event was. Did you mention? It was the Little League.
Little League State Championship and the senior center anniversary.
Excellent. So we have already talked about the Board of Selectmen budget, but we can put that back on the agenda for next week. So next week, we are going to talk about the administrative departments, the manager, IT, accounting, assessor, clerk, planning board, FinCom budget. Now that we'll put the Board of Selectmen budget back on there. And then 5-year capital plan. We're going to put back on here and talk about that. And then if there's time, we got to start taking some votes on this budget. We will know what the school district budget is at that time. We'll know what our hole is. Peter said over 3 weeks to solve all the other questions in the budget, so I'm sure he has definitive answers on everything else. We'll put the bar high.
We're close.
He knows exactly what insurance is even before the insurance company does.
We're pretty confident it's going to be 4.21. We didn't get an actual rate sheet, but we did get something in writing. We got a letter. So 4.21 is
So
Really good.
we're tiptoeing to,
we're thrilled. Thrilled.
we're tiptoeing up to that line where we're confident. That's good.
You're hiring all those young people.
Yeah. We have the fitness tests for everybody, no matter what they're doing.
So does that mean if we're going to start voting next week, are we going to get a new budget overview and updated sheets?
That would be excellent. Stephanie's maintaining a
Remind
list
me.
of requests that we make of Peter.
It is, it's really helpful, honestly, because then
Yeah.
we send it out to each department, and then we know we're on it.
And it is tough because he's sitting there trying to answer questions, but
Right.
trying to remember to jot them down at the same time is tough, so.
So we need a budget overview and what else? Just
Resource profile update, is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, budget overview / resource profile is.
Really, anything that changed.
It's the changes,
Right,
because we're not getting new pages in the book.
right. So it'll be the overview, and if whatever else changes, if the debt schedule changes, if the capital plan changes, you know, those documents would need to be updated as well. But
Right.
we haven't voted on any of those changes yet, so unless Peter has additional insight that he wants to share on some of them because he got grant money or he got us insurance or he got a price or something like that, that would be good.
Sarah's got a question.
Sarah?
I wonder if we might think about approaching our process a little bit differently.
Okay.
I sometimes feel like I don't want to vote on individual budgets without having a fuller picture of where we're going to end up. because I think that especially for this upcoming fiscal year, it's all about trade-offs. You know, we have to make tough decisions, and we may come down to you know, literally saying $5,000 there. Well, if I want this to have that, do I take it from here? And so, I don't know. I just am wondering whether we could approach it in a different way, where we're kind of working different changes into a live spreadsheet or something, and kind of capturing and going back and forth and looking at different options before we vote on individual budgets. Because, I mean, I know we can go back and re-vote, but I don't know, to me, I sometimes think I want to have the bigger picture down, and then I want to make my votes. So I'll just throw it out there. I don't know if others have had a similar experience in the past, but.
If you want, in the spreadsheet that we keep, that I'll create for the votes, I could see if I could put columns in for possible pluses and minuses.
What I would love to see, and this is going to come from Peter and his staff, new budget overview that balances to existing revenue. However, you know, how if he chooses to change some of these revenue lines or change the budget lines, whatever, the whole thing balances. Then I would like to have a list of, if we pass a $2 million override, what are the first $2 million of things to go back? Mm-hmm. 3 million, 4 million, whatever the key cutoffs are, in order, so that we can follow us. We can tell people, if we pass a $4 million override, we're going to get this fire engine, we're going to get this police officer, we're going to get senior center, and whatever. But we're going to lose these 4 things that are otherwise necessary. And if we go to $5 million, well, then we get these other 3 things. I don't know how the numbers actually play out, but something like that, a priority order. So we can tell people $5 million will get us back to 80% of what we were hoping for the year. We got to go to $7 million to get everything, or whatever the number is.
I think what Sarah was getting at might even be before that, though, because the trade-offs to even get to the balanced budget, you know, we haven't talked about the fact that we're taking $2 million out of the stabilization account. You know, the trade-offs, you know, we talked in the fire department budget about the changes that we're proposing, and there's still some moving parts.
Exactly.
Within even just to get to a balanced budget without the override.
Right.
And I think, and then, to your point, what would we add back in what priority order?
I think the two go hand in hand, because the question is, okay, Peter's top priorities for adding things back in, I'm just going to make them up, you know, the senior center and the library. We go through the budget, we may say that senior center is more important than this line item that he thinks is more important, and we should debate the relative merits of each of those things. Right. And so forth. So I think having a list of what he thinks the priorities are versus what we've gathered from our discussions would be beneficial. Al?
I don't disagree with you, Paul, but I think to Sarah's point, I mean, none of you may agree with me, but before we start voting on individual budgets, I think we do need to have, as you put, an overall plan. I mean, my overall plan, to be honest with you, would be not to have senior center and library on the chopping block, to give the fire chief his overtime fire before we ever get to an override vote. And those are things that we need to discuss and decide. Mm-hmm. If we decide as a group, forget it, Al, it's never going to happen, then we can approach the budgets different ways. If we decide as a group, that would be a goal. Now we got to get down to nitty-gritty in some of these budgets to find the money to make that happen.
Right.
Right. So for example, if we're going to talk about OPEB, we don't want to just cut that without saying the reason we're cutting it is because we want to put, this is an example, another $50,000 into the senior center budget to bring that back up because we're uncomfortable with those cuts. You kind of want to see if the committee is there before you make those individual votes. Mm-hmm. So how we do that, you know, it's more complicated, but I just wonder, and since we're starting next week, we need to talk about it.
I think that discussion is an evening in and of itself.
Yeah.
It may be. and how we typically approach the budget by kind of ripping through all the small departments and just getting them out of the way before we talk about the meaty stuff, but, that may be inappropriate this year as well. And one year, we just went from the front of the book to the back of the book. We can always talk about how we want to approach these things, too. I'm just looking at the calendar, and next week we have the budget that we're talking about and maybe taking votes. The week after that is devoted to Wachusett Regional being here and presenting their budget. So, and April 1st would then be the rest of the budgetary discussion. So we're already thinking about having a couple of nights of those discussions. So, oh yeah, and one thing I did not mention, next week is we have a Thursday meeting with the Montechusett team.
Right.
Yeah.
That should be quick.
Well, we can make it quick. I think sometimes we make it kind of long.
So,
Which of these smaller general government budgets we've done a couple of them? Like, we've heard from you, Peter, about many of them, right?
Correct.
Right. So next Wednesday is kind of open. I would suggest that we don't put pressure on ourselves to vote, but that we have that as a working, I don't know, almost like a workshop. Like, we need to workshop some of these ideas that we have. I assume folks are keeping what Donna described. I've got a little piece of paper, things I want to add, things I want to subtract, and things that I want to talk through with folks. We could continue that on Thursday and potentially start voting then if we think that we're ready. But if not, do the voting on Wednesday, the 25th.
So you started with what we're doing next week, and what I see next week is the manager, IT, accounting, assessor, clerk, and planning.
Okay, everybody else, yeah.
And then Board of Selectmen, if we want to reopen that, and FinCom, if we want to reopen that, because we talked about putting our reserve fund back, just taking more money out of stabilization and funding the reserve fund, so it was available without a town meeting.
Can you explain what you mean by reopen?
We talked about the FinCom a couple of weeks ago,
But we.
just very quickly, and we raised that question about maybe we.
Oh,
want-
right.
The reserve fund is not in the FinCom budget at the moment. We thought maybe it should be. When we go to vote on it, we're going to want to put that in, so.
To have that conversation.
But
Yeah,
that's-
well, I think that there's a lot of budgets that we've heard from where we're going to probably hear some suggestions and motions for changing the budget.
Correct.
So,
To make it go a little bit faster, do we want to, I'll offer to make a list. If everybody wants to email me their topics, like, I have notes about increasing this or decreasing that, or, if you want to email those to me, I can create a list that might speed us up a little bit, because we'd have we wouldn't be spending the time. And
I think that would be a great idea, Donna, if you could do that, and we also could give that to Peter, and he could think about it before the meeting and talk to his staff about what each of these things might mean, so he'd be better prepared for any discussions.
So question, do we prefer to work out of an Excel spreadsheet, or do we prefer, I'm a very visual person. I like flip charts. And I'll go either way, whichever way people prefer. If we use an Excel spreadsheet, then we'll have to, put it up.
it absolutely has to be
Something that we can all see, right?
And the public.
Yeah.
I think a
That's
projected
true.
Excel sheet might be the most efficient way of doing it, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then we can save it. All right, so.
You can see how much you get, too.
Right, so email me your topics that you have, that you want to talk about.
And you'll put Peter's list on that too, right?
Yeah, do I have, when
Yeah,
you say
it
Peter's
is.
list, is it in your spread, Peter's list this?
My list of
His
what?
original
Oh, okay.
slide.
Oh.
Yeah, do we have,
Yeah, it's in.
did we get an updated one, Peter? I remember we had talked about,
No, I haven't done an updated one.
okay, so
I
if you
haven't
can
really-
email that too?
I don't think I've changed anything myself.
This was the updated one, the one with the highlights.
Right, but it didn't, remember we talked about the fact that the highlights didn't add up to the amount that you said you were adding
Yeah,
back.
that's on that.
Yeah, that was a slide. It was probably an error on the slide. I don't know.
Oh.
That is as it stands. I think I haven't really come up with any changes to what I originally,
So the highlighted items are the only items that you would add?
that I would like, that I think
Back.
are vital. Yeah, I mean, I would add all of them back if I could, but, those are the ones
Right,
that I
no,
thought were the most vital.
Okay. So it doesn't have to add up to the 1.3 million?
But this is why I was asking him to put together another listed in order
Priority
with dollar amounts,
order.
what his priorities would be,
Yeah, I can do that.
which
Yeah,
is
that
really
would be
just cutting and
helpful.
pasting that list and then making sure it adds up to a number that makes sense,
Don't, bear in mind also that the Board of Selectmen is going to have to vote on an override question and a number, probably around April 6th or so.
which is why we're kind of pushing the schedule fast.
Yeah, no, I'm just
So
to
we can
remind
make sure we
you.
get a recommendation to them so that they can set, what they need to do is set the override amount.
Yeah.
They don't need a budget number, but they
Yeah.
need a requested override, and then the budget, of course, would support the override request. So, Jane?
I would like to take the conversation back to some comments that Al has made that I happen to agree with, and that is that, it's one thing to approach this project with a list of line items. Personally, I think of that approach as one of micromanagement that maybe somewhat insulting to the department heads. I would rather have a broad-based philosophical discussion that would lead to some consensus about what we would like to do, and that may lead us to some definitive numbers. But I don't think that we, as a committee, should be micromanaging the entire whole. I think that we should be giving target numbers to the manager and the department heads to find on their own.
Okay.
Different approach.
Other, Sarah?
I just have a question for Peter. So we're going to do our own work, of course, but the board is going to set the override amount. Is there interest that you've heard from the board in hearing sort of a variety of options for them to consider, or would that be a not very useful conversation, meaning like a $3 million override, a $5.5 million override, and a $7 million override, or I made those numbers up. I'm just trying to get a sense of how we can best use our time, what the board might be expecting, anticipating, what they would consider. I don't know.
I don't think it would hurt to give that kind of a breakdown, but at the same time, I'm getting a pretty strong sense from the board that they are in favor of, some of them are in favor of funding everything possible, and then some with an override, probably beyond anything that we even have suggested. But all of them, I think, all five, from what I'm sensing, and I can't speak for them, but what I'm sensing is that they're all supportive of a fairly sizable override within the realm of $5 million to $6 million. And as you've seen, $5 million to $6 million would get us where we need to be, not just funding what we think we need to fund, but also that would prevent us from having to spend our stabilization. It would keep us on track for our year-old policy of only spending half of free cash, and therefore put us on a good footing for next year and the year after as well, which is kind of vital because get it done once and get it done right. So I'm getting that sense that they're supportive of it, which is very positive, I think.
And there's really no, I'm sorry, Steph, there's really no appetite, from my understanding, for multiple options in terms of putting multiple options on the ballot for different override levels.
I don't think so, because then everyone just goes for the lowest one, if that, so,
The discount one.
Yeah.
Peter, I think one of the first items we asked for that I don't think has come back yet is the 5-year plan showing the impact of the override passing. Are you close to that? Like,
Yeah, she's had the revenue done for a while. The revenue side, I guess, is the easier side. She's having trouble with the expenses because, we kind of have a little debate going because she's working on information that, department heads plugged in 3 years ago for their 5-year plan and they never took it out. So it's still sitting there, or their 10-year plan. So, and every year we get to that and they say, oh, what's that there for? Oh, yeah, I put that in 2 years ago. Forget it, I don't need, so it's, we have to sort of re-poll everyone to say, is this really what you're going to be asking for in 5 years, or is it just old information that's still in the system? So that's really where it's kind of held up right now, but she's got it.
do you think we could get it before next week? Before
think
we start
so.
having this?
Yeah.
I think that'll just really help us with an outline to see what the impact will be more long-term.
We had a department head meeting yesterday, so we were discussing it, and yeah, I think we should have it.
Even if we don't have every line item perfect, if we just have a ballpark number,
Right.
Which is, really what you do in a 5-year plan.
Right.
And then the next step from there is, okay, you have a 5-year plan, you manage your departments to meet that plan. It's not driven from the bottom up, and all of a sudden, we need another $500,000 because somebody identifies something. It's like, no, we have a 5-year plan, you're getting this. Roll it into, whatever, so. You develop a plan and then you manage to the plan. You're not a victim of the departments and the whims of the age. That is a scary thought, though, because it makes me think what you were describing there, that the 5-year plan we have in here is not very robust, that people are not taking it seriously. They're not really thinking about out years. They're not even changing the numbers. That scares me about trying to rely on it at all. So. Although most of these departments should be steady Eddie, 3.25 increases all the way along. Other than capital plans and repairs and buildings and things, major things. Most of these are just labor departments, and we know what labor's going to do within a narrow range. So shouldn't be a whole lot of back and forth on it. Okay. Anything else for us to discuss tonight?
Meeting minutes?
So, having reached the,
One quick question. So in the 5-year work that's being done, as you update with the managers, the department heads, will you be incorporating the capital improvements plan that Ryan put together?
Maybe some, but probably not all of it.
Because, of course, those are real needs.
Some.
And that's why he was hired, was to help us establish what the needs actually are.
Yeah, some are critical, some are not.
and Jane brings up the 5-year plan. Peter had mentioned earlier this evening that Ryan should be returning to work and might be available to discuss that. Do we want to have that next week?
Yes.
I hear one yes, and I hear a lot of blank faces.
I think it'd be better use of time to do Ryan's plan next week and then have a different day where we do the strategizing. Personally, I'd like to do a day of strategizing without a lot of other stuff. I think it's going to take us a long time to work through that.
So, looking at the budget schedule that we currently have, are we talking about another meeting? Another Thursday night meeting, or we cut Massachusetts short and we, not to cut them short, but we keep that to an hour or whatever, and then we have something that night? Or are you thinking along those lines, or you think?
I was thinking a whole nother meeting, but I'm open for.
Do we need Massachusetts?
I was just going to say, like, we can't spend an hour on something that we can't even change, right?
Well, we got a whole night for Massachusetts, so.
Well, yeah.
No, we haven't seen Massachusetts in a couple of years, and it could
Yeah.
easily be canceled if.
We
that-
saw them my first year, and they had a great
didn't last
presentation. It was wonderful. I really
Right.
enjoyed it, but I don't know. I mean, I think.
Yeah, can we cut
We can
them and
consider
then
that.
replace it with a strategy meeting?
Yeah.
Certainly do that if that's the desire of the group.
Yeah, we could do it that way, or we could also consider like more of a working meeting where we don't start at 6:30, we start at, 5, and because we met, I just feel like it's a different meeting, and it's gonna be us talking to each other. It's actually gonna be hard probably to film unless we set it up in a right way, but that's okay. I mean, we really need to dig our hands into it.
It's more like a workshop.
It's more like a workshop. That's my vision, anyway. So I'm down for whatever. If people agree with that model, we can try to flesh it out. And if we need to find another day, then I'm on board with adding something to the schedule, but.
A thought comes to mind, and not wanting to be respectful to Montechusett either, but since we can't change their budget, they can visit with us and make a presentation at any time. We can do these critical decisions that we have to make sooner and invite them in at a later date, and it wouldn't make any difference.
I bet they wouldn't mind skipping the meeting.
No, they do 19 of them, so.
Exactly. Like, why don't we just give everyone a break?
Oh, my
Cut it and replace it with
Yep.
the workshop or whatever we want to call it.
Anybody else?
The people who are talking are all in favor of changing Montechusett. I guess the next question would be for Peter, March 12th, is that a day that you're available? I know it's a Thursday night instead of a, is that night then too early in our cycle? On the 11th, no, it probably shouldn't be. The 18th, the following week is school district, but we'll have the school district number the week before. We'll have this, so. And then there's no other budget reviews per se after the school district, and we already know what their number is, so we'll have to respond to that one. So, March 12th, then we just turn into this, well, a non-Montechusett session. We can figure out what the 12th is going to be. So we'll contact Montechusett and have them cancel. So.
I'd suggest we ask Jim Riley to keep his to a minimum as well. I mean, we've got a number, we can take the number and thank him and send him on his way, or we can debate per pupil expenditure and MCAS scores for 4.5 hours. I mean, it goes two ways.
I would like to ask him to use whatever limited time, I don't care how short it is, to talk about the next 5 years.
Okay. I don't mean to be sarcastic, but you can ask. I know because I've done it, and I got absolutely nothing.
Who's canceling Montechusett? Someone from our board, Peter?
Peter's group makes all the arrangements with them, so.
Okay.
Thank them for us, though.
Oh, Marilyn?
I think we should still hear from Montechusett. I think where we hear from Montechusett, we should hear from them for our kids go there. And they say they could only take a short time. We can even limit Montechusett to a short time, too. So,
Maybe limit
my
them
feeling.
both to a short time and do them on the same night.
They're probably not available if they have 19 towns.
Right,
they
the
have to
district,
visit.
the district gave us the date that they fit into their schedule, and we took what was available. All the other dates, if I remember right, were later, going into April even. Okay, so Maryland's in favor of maintaining the Montechusett meeting. Other people I've seen have said not in favor. Do we need to make a motion on this to get a vote on it, or are we comfortable?
Would it be possible to, since the schedule for next Wednesday night is relatively light, would it be possible to manage that agenda on the same night that we hear from Montechusett, thereby freeing up Wednesday night?
My own take on it is Wachusett is clearly the major driver of this budget. We have to be able to talk intelligently about it. We have to know their budget as well as they do. So I'm very uncomfortable with taking 2/3 of the budget and cutting it down to a 45-minute presentation, and, you know, so.
Spoken, I'm talking about Montechusett. I'm
Well, I thought
talking,
she was proposing to cut Wachusett back and put Montechusett on the same night.
well, that was an earlier thought.
Okay.
This suggestion is, since our schedule for next Wednesday, for us, administrative budgets, is relatively light and could be relatively short, could that not be moved to the Montechusett night? Don't cancel Montechusett, just attempt to do all of that. That would free up Wednesday night for our workshop.
And perhaps we could offer, I don't know if we can, but could we offer, sorry, could we offer them an opportunity to come remotely and speak to us? Maybe that would be more convenient for them if we're asking them at the last minute to change. I am not opposed to hearing from Montechusett. I would really enjoy hearing from Montechusett, and I understand why we want to. I would say if we do want to hear from them and we bring them, that we should have a time limit that we enforce and give them a heads up, because I think that's only polite.
The difficulty with that is that Peter needs to know when to have his staff appear. So if we are going to attempt to do the accounting assessor, clerk, and planning, he needs to have people here to do that. We need to have a date certain for them to talk to us.
Right, I think they're saying use the Montechusett date that's already scheduled Thursday and add those 4 departments to that night.
And not do Monty check.
No, do Monty Tech and general government in the same, on that Thursday that's already scheduled.
Either day, honestly, I don't think it matters.
I don't know that we'll have staff that, my kid has
Right.
that
Yeah.
Thursday night, so now we're changing it because they were ready to go Wednesday, so.
Same with mine.
And the same with Montechusett, right? They've got 19 meetings, I'm sure they've got lives.
I motion that we let Montechusett know that we're not going to need to hear from them, that they can send us the presentation, and if we have questions, we'll go back and ask them.
Second.
Other discussion of the motion? All in favor of contacting Montechusett and giving our regrets, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. So we'll ask Wendy to contact Monty and pass on that.
But we should also, well, can we have them, if they have materials that they've prepared, certainly send to us? I think that's a really important part of it.
Their presentations are always on their website,
Okay.
and I presume that their current year presentations are up there. I know all their past 15 years' presentations are there, so that is readily available. I can look at that and circulate a link.
I have a thought about this. We all find, or I think most of us find the Montechusett presentation very interesting. We don't necessarily need to see them for this budget cycle, but I would be more than happy to come in for an evening in the fall and have them make a presentation about what they're doing.
They, in the past, have been very gracious and excited about inviting us to visit them and take a tour of their facility. They give you dinner, and, so,
Yeah, it's great. It's a great tour. We liked it.
but, and then we have a budget discussion.
Yeah.
Although I guess the last time we took a tour, we just went up and did a tour. We didn't do the presentation that night, but
Right.
anyway, that day. All right. Other FinCom miscellaneous for this evening? Seeing none, we reach the end of the agenda. The meeting is adjourned.